Chapter 504. Why aren't you moving? He's right there. We need to observe. I just need him to cooperate. I'm not asking him to risk his life. I need to outsmart him. Then that's really unfortunate. That unlucky bastard has already been exposed. Do you remember? He once met your target face to face. If you really want to go, then it won't be outsmarting him. It'll be a provocation. Not only do you want him to go provoke a dangerous target, but you want him to provoke a paranoid maniac who can slaughter half of Xia City at any time? What does half of Xia City have to do with me? You're very clear on C-2834's value. Her value is immeasurable. Don't talk about half of Xia City. 10 Xia Cities, 100 Xia Cities. Are you sure that the Federation Council agrees before you say these words? There are 88 large metropolitan areas in the world. 100 Xia cities. How do you convert them? Don't try to sell your glib tongue. Think about your ex. I'm not married, and I don't have a formal relationship. What do you mean by ex? We're not familiar with each other. I can sue you for slander if you speak carelessly. Bai Xinyan. The other side slammed the table. You've been in Xia City for the past 2 months. You haven't done a single thing that you should have done. Instead, you've gotten along well with the Xia City branch. You've put in a lot of effort in treating Luo Nan's injuries. Now you're evading in every possible way. I seriously doubt your position. If this matter isn't handled properly, then you'll have to take full responsibility. The irrational communication was cut off at this point. But then again, wasn't the other side just shouting that last sentence? Everything was a routine. Bai Xinyan didn't care, but she wouldn't let the other side succeed. After the communication was cut off, she immediately sent a text message to the other side. Appeal to the higher-ups. I'll let you go first. 3 seconds later, the communication was connected again. It was the same person, but the hysterical mood was close to non-existent. He was just a bit irritated and helpless. What the hell do you want? This is what I want to ask. Ever since C-2834 entered the Shangding building, all relevant information has been reported to the lab through a stable channel. I can imagine that in the future, as long as C-2834 is under the control of the Xia City branch, there will be a steady stream of information. What else do you want? Research requires first-hand information. You should understand that the existence of C-2834 indicates that there is a huge problem with the direction of the Bloodline project. If we can't find the root of the problem, this project will be stalled indefinitely. Instructor Li Wei is very angry about this. We are also under a lot of pressure. Speaking of that name, the voice on the other side instinctively lowered. I understand. That's why you're acting like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. Or rather, you're putting on a show for that person. The other party froze. Bai Xinyan smiled. Fortunately, you haven't completely lost your rationality. At least, you still have the idea of outsmarting the enemy. The beginning is still acceptable. Even if the follow-up plan is too horrible to look at, that's not a big deal. As long as you understand that your life is precious, this is still an era where you can be willful if you have money. The other party spoke again. What do you think? I'm now the manager of Quantum Holdings, so I naturally have to consider things from the company's standpoint. Therefore, I think that as a company, the person at the helm must show the courage of a capitalist. If the project can be solved with money and can be profitable in the end, don't consider other means. Throw money at him? Too rough. Right now, storytelling is rather popular in the capital market, especially in the early stages. We can first test the waters. What do you think of the name Miss 2 in 1,000? The other party was silent again. As a senior executive of the Deep Blue World Joint Project, he was deeply involved in the relevant matters. Of course, he knew what the ratio of 2 in 1,000 meant. Just over a month ago, they had a business discussion with the Ability User Association's headquarters. They had offered 2 in 1,000 shares of the Deep Blue World Joint Project in exchange for the rights to C-2834. At the time, they had wanted the headquarters to take the lead and attempt to circumvent the protection of the two extraordinaries. Unfortunately, they hadn't been able to do so in the end. Instead, Gong Chi, who had led the team into Xia City, had lost quite a bit of face. Now that Bai Xinyan had brought up the old matter again, he immediately understood the meaning behind it. 2 and 1,000 of 8 trillion was 16 billion. Money itself didn't have any meaning. The Deep Blue World Joint Project had a lot of information, as well as the research results that were about to make a huge breakthrough because of this Miss 2 and 1,000, were the most valuable parts. As far as the parties who had already participated in the project were concerned, the information and results were all clearly marked on the agreement. 2 and 1,000 was 16 billion. It wouldn't increase their rights and interests by much, but it also wouldn't cause any considerable losses. But as far as the other capitals and powers in the world were concerned, the qualifications they didn't have the opportunity to obtain in the past were the most important. Even if it was still a bottomless pit for the time being and they had to continuously throw money into it, once the results were out, 16 billion? 8 trillion? That was nothing. This was a super project that could affect the entire era. Originally, it was just a targeted distribution, but all of a sudden, it was a public offering. Regardless of whether the information was true or not, for the sake of the astronomical profits in the next few decades, it was easy to imagine that there would definitely be capital parties and powers burning with greed to make such an investment. Of course, there might also be desperados who had delusions of getting rich overnight. 16 billion was already an enormous amount of wealth that could establish a considerable foundation. And from beginning to end, they only needed to leak a little bit of information. They didn't even need the authorization of the board of directors. In any case, that 2 and 1,000 was the portion that had to be sent out. The ability user headquarters even had to share some of the suspicion. Everything was ready, and there wouldn't be any obvious evidence left behind. Light as a feather, but it would stir the overflowing hearts of people. In the face of greedy hyenas from all sides, even if Xia City had the Iron Triangle, they would still be flustered for a period of time. After all, desperados didn't have the sensitive points that major powers would be wary of in a confrontation. And in the field of capital, they would break through all bottom lines. You have a grudge with them, right? The other side had completely forgotten the suspected collaboration with the enemy at the end of the previous communication. In his opinion, this kind of ruthless extermination plan was not a blood feud, so there was no reason to do so. Haha. Bai Xinyan laughed without any sincerity. She skipped over this topic and moved on to a more realistic level. And your plan? Although it's terrible to look at, it's enough to throw a brick to attract jade. While you're at it, it's also enough to make the information true. During this period of time, because of the problems with the two orders of justice and blood flame, Xia City has filled in a lot of unstable factors. These are all resources that can be used. Okay. Hey, where are you going? A friend is in trouble, so of course I have to help. I'm very clear about the issue of my position. The legendary, black-hearted Salt really lived up to his name. The radio waves shuttling back and forth in Xia City were gradually permeating with malice. But in the small alley behind the bar, people were still struggling over the details. You two seem to have quite the affinity. Moya rubbed her chin and looked at the two half-grown children standing side by side. She had a lot of doubts in her heart, but now was not the time to be calculative. Since you two can get along so well, just bring him home. Let's ask Dad to help and see if he can figure out the child's identity. As a high-ranking employee of the SCA, Mo Haiheng did indeed have the ability to do so. However, Moya said it so casually that Hai Jing also had a headache. It wasn't that he didn't have sympathy, but for a normal person, wasn't it the best choice to let the police handle it? The young police officer who sent the police on the other side also had a headache. If we can't find any information, this child is most likely an illegal resident. The voice behind him became softer. He also felt that Hai Jing was the only reliable one in this group of people, so he discussed with him. I suspect that this child may be a wilderness vagrant. Let's take the child back to the police station first, and then let the Civil Affairs Department handle it. Vagrant? Yes, there have been a lot of vagrants entering the city recently, and many of them haven't completed the procedures. According to the regulations, these illegal residents must be registered by the Civil Affairs Department and either sent back to the designated temporary residential area or to the designated welfare center. Where are the residential areas and the welfare center? The police officer found the closest ones and showed them to Hai Jing. The latter was shocked. Why are they all in the west? Of course. After all, Xia City is surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, and only the west side is close to the wilderness. The government also followed the principle of the nearest settlement. That side is more than 100 kilometers away from the coastal area. How did the child get here? While they were talking, the late staff of the Child Welfare Center finally arrived at the scene. His explanation was similar to the young police officer. There's no information at all. The most likely possibility is that he's an illegal resident from the residential area. Now, there are 2 choices. Either his relatives in the residential area claim him, or he'll be temporarily taken in by the welfare center and wait for the charity to adopt him. The Child Welfare Center that Hai Jing notified was a government department under the SCA. The person who came was a civil servant, and he looked quite capable. He used his wristband to take a picture of Roy Wen and said, "We need to complete the information here, but it's too late today. Let's find a place to settle down first. Tomorrow." "Oh, tomorrow is Sunday. We need to wait until Monday for the relevant procedures to be completed." He operated his wristband. There's an empty bed at the Santa Maria Charity Hall 27 kilometers away. This welfare center isn't close, but it's backed by a hospital. The facilities are more complete, and it's more convenient to collect information. Mo Ye and Hai Jing glanced at each other. It seemed that this was a good way to handle things. Just then, Luo Nan raised his hand. "How about this? I'll stay with her at the welfare center for 1 night. When that time came, the branch should be able to prepare the relevant information." Setting up the identity of a vagrant and appointing an adoptive family was a good background. "You?" The staff of the welfare center furrowed his brows. "You are?" "We're the informants." The older sister had to bear the burden of her younger brother's willfulness, and this was a good thing. Mo Ye roughly communicated, but the staff of the welfare center shook his head. "That's not necessary. We have professionals looking after her. Do you think she'll be obedient if I don't accompany her?" Luo Nan was still holding on to Roy Wen's wrist. He didn't let go for even a moment. Mo Ye turned her head and suddenly realized that something was wrong. The police stepped forward and reported the situation to the staff of the welfare center. The staff of the welfare center had a serious expression when they learned of the situation. "Everyone, this isn't just a matter of charity. It also involves the basic collection of information in today's society, the placement of vagrants, and a series of other technical issues. We will be responsible for the vulnerable, but we also need to be responsible for the SCA and the relevant social order at the same time." So. The staff of the welfare center paused, and a stiff smile appeared on his face. "You can follow. We welcome the public to supervise our work, but please don't interfere with the normal procedures." The matter was barely resolved now that it had reached this point. The young police officer finished recording the incident and left. Luo Nan's group, along with Mo Ye and Hai Jing, followed the vehicle of the welfare center to the Santa Maria Charity Hall. Since the nanny van had already left, Luo Nan made arrangements. "Me, Roy Wen, Sis, Brother Hai Jing, will all sit in the same van. Brother Qin can sit in the front. The back of the van is spacious. The 4 of us can still fit in." There were no problems with his arrangement, but Mo Ye cast a subtle glance at him. "Roy Wen? You know each other?" "I just asked. You didn't hear me when you were talking to the police." Mo Ye narrowed her eyes, but she didn't say anything. The group of people got on the van, and they followed the vehicle of the welfare center. Roy Wen sat by the window. She was looking out the window at the direction where ink was flapping its wings. "It'll be fine. It'll definitely follow." Luo Nan knew what she was thinking and hurried to comfort her. During this time, the feedback of the closed system continued to affect Ink's body. Aside from the enlargement of its body, the bald crow's strength, agility, endurance, and other hard indicators all increased. Its flying speed was at least twice that of its peers. It could even be compared with some falcons. Ruiwen didn't respond, but Luo Nan understood that she already knew. From Ruiwen's perspective, Ink and Luo Nan were her main focus. It was enough for her to pay attention to them for the time being. But from Luo Nan's perspective, the things he had to worry about had begun to rapidly expand from the moment he held Ruiwen's arm. Many of them involved areas he had never touched before. This was undoubtedly an enormous challenge. But Luo Nan wasn't afraid. He had Ruiwen by his side, and she had placed her trust in him. The illusory courage and sense of responsibility in his heart was hammering into reality bit by bit. He had to do something, and he was already doing it. A thin layer of sweat seeped out of his body. This was a natural reaction after consuming energy. And right now, the rate at which his soul strength increased was rapidly slowing down. Even his reserve water level was dropping. Outside the window, the freezing rain grew denser and denser. It was mixed with fine ice shards that hit the van with rustling sounds. A gap had already opened up in a corner of the void within this icy curtain of rain. An invisible soul cloak was wantonly expanding in this area where water molecules were rich. It was heading east. It had already plunged into the domain of the ocean. It was heading west at a speed far beyond the reach of vehicles. It covered Linhai, Lilan, Nade, East City, South City, Zhongshu, and the other 6 or 7 administrative districts of Xia City. It covered an area of nearly 10,000 square kilometers. In a few more minutes, West City, Pingjiang, River Wu, Woodwall, and the other western administrative districts would be covered by the Soul Cloak. Chapter 505. The small mechanical spider crawled along the corridor. It was fast, but it didn't bump into any railings or corners. This was a popular bionic toy, and it was also the favorite of the children in the orphanage. Many people might think that it was ugly, but most children still thought that it was cute and sometimes cool. Especially when it was wandering in the dark, its 6 sensory eyes would flicker unpredictably. It could scare people to the point that they would jump in fright. Without a doubt, this was the favorite of those naughty kids. The toy spider in the Santa Maria Charity Hall was only a basic version. Although the 6 sensory eyes could send and receive signals and identify directions and obstacles, so that they wouldn't be reduced to mere decorations, they didn't have imaging functions. However, for some people, a simple stream of information was enough. 2 blocks away from the Santa Maria Charity Hall, the straight-line distance was about 3.5 kilometers. Inside a high-rise office building, the lights were still on at 10:00 in the evening on the 75th floor, even though it was a weekend. The relevant personnel were hurrying to set up the relevant equipment, and some people were already playing in front of the temporary workbench. Come on, give me a big signal. Get out, I'll shoot you in the face with little noise." The young black man in front of the workbench was wearing headphones. His body continued to move rhythmically, and he was completely immersed in self-entertainment. Nobody bothered him. On the one hand, this was his working state, and on the other hand, it was none of their business. The light screen in front of the young black man was full of irregular red, green, and blue blocks, which were constantly piecing together and changing according to his rhythm. There seemed to be some pattern, but overall, it was still very blurry. Ba Tu, the operations director of Putt Service Company, stood behind the young black man with a serious expression, but he was actually quite envious. The noise in front of him was a very outstanding reconnaissance ability user. He could capture monotonous and fragmented signals and complete the outline of the scene. He could also carry out high-power active interference. Through specific amplification equipment, his range of influence could reach hundreds of kilometers away. He could be described as a human-shaped radar and electronic interference system. Such talents were usually intercepted by the military early on, and so was noise. However, this guy had psychological problems. He claimed that he was big and couldn't control his crotch, so he should have been shot if he committed a crime in the military. However, he was taken out by a certain powerhouse and joined the powerhouse's team, continuing to cause trouble outside. Tonight was a joint operation between Putt's service company and that powerhouse team. According to the accurate information obtained from both sides' channels, the current temporary resident of the Santa Maria Charity Hall, the girl named Roy 1, already had a net worth as high as $16 billion. Moreover, it was a discount from the shares of the Deep Blue World joint project. Whether the information was true or not, it would be up to his superiors to judge. As for how to interpret the value of the information, there was no need to go into detail. The most realistic situation was that every power would swarm over as the news spread. They must seize it as soon as possible. The branch in Sia City would also respond quickly. It was hard to say what would happen next. But tonight, because Roy Wan had entered the secular world, she was placed in this charity hall. She was temporarily separated from the core protective network of the Sia City branch. Without a doubt, this was their best and last chance. Putt Service Company was a medium-sized assassination service provider. It couldn't be considered to be at the top of the industry. Noise's metal hunting group was an extraordinary business, but there was still a considerable disparity when compared to the standards of the Sia City branch. Even if both sides joined forces, they still didn't possess the strength to directly confront Ouyang Chen and Her Majesty Empress Wu, too extraordinary. They could only catch them off guard by surprise. Of course, they also needed to have sufficient methods of shifting the blame. Only then could they guarantee that they would be able to escape unscathed regardless of the mission's success or failure. Ba Tu could roughly guess the insight of the powerhouse behind the metal hunting group. Aside from the standard of strength, Putt Service Company was chosen because they had a ready-made network and team in Sia City. They also valued their mercenary channels that covered every major city in East Asia and the vagrant tribes of the wilderness. They also valued their superclass shifting skills. It just so happened that Sia City had recently accepted several vagrant tribes. Dragons and snakes were mixed in them. There were a lot of desperados who were experts in their studies. Just as Batu was thinking about how to deal with the aftermath, someone walked into the workshop. The 2-meter-tall and sturdy body was very conspicuous. It was like the sound of metal plates rubbing against each other. There was a powerful oppressive force. "You still haven't released the map?" Mr. Gang Xiong. Ba Tu greeted him. His gaze swept past the man's shoulder and neck structure, and he saw that Noise was jumping high and did not respond, so he said on his behalf, "It's raining now. The disturbance is probably not small." The person who came was the third in command of the metal hunting group, Throat Splitter Gang Xiong. He was a very famous veteran architect and a B-rank powerhouse. Rumor has it that he once had a large part of his throat torn off, but he relied on his tenacious life force to survive. He only underwent a physical transformation. From then on, he liked to tear people's throats when he killed them. He received the fierce name of Throat Splitter. After Gang Xiong entered the workshop, he took on the responsibility of commanding. He asked about the progress of the technical team. "How's the cracking going?" "We still need around 10 minutes. The security system of the charity hall is connected to the Santa Maria Church Hospital. It will be quite troublesome to hack in. Mr. Gang Xiong, we can take advantage of this time to have a brief tactical meeting." Motherf *****. Ba Tu choked. Fortunately, he knew that Noise had made a breakthrough. This black bro threw off the monitoring headphones. He straightened his buttocks and screamed in excitement. Noise was a scumbag, but his skills were top-notch. As he screamed, the meaningless color blocks on the screen quickly decreased. It was like a streaming video with an unstable signal. There were more lags and mosaics, but the basic outline of the video was already visible. Sand table. Gang Xiong signaled his assistant to do something. Very soon, the digital sand table that had just been placed in the middle of the room displayed a panoramic 3D projection of the Santa Maria Charity Hall. It was a translucent grayish-white color. But a few seconds later, Noise was more or less settled. The relevant data was transferred to the sand table, and bright colors were smeared over it layer by layer. At the beginning, there were some mosaics, but it quickly became clear. Especially in the special marked areas, a few human figures appeared. In the sand table projection, they were about the size of a finger, but their appearances were similar. The details were exquisite, and they were lifelike. They were the target of their target tonight. The charity hall was quite generous to temporary guests. The individual room on the first floor of the residential area was located at the corner of the building. Because of the flower bed, it could be considered a relatively independent half-enclosed courtyard. It was relatively quiet, and it was easy to make a move. Noise was ecstatic. Damned weather, damned weather, damned weather. I'll let you guys experience it. The sand table projection was covered by a blurry curtain of rain as soon as he finished speaking. Ba-Tu furrowed his brows, but didn't say anything. It wasn't bad to be able to restore the scene in a more complete manner. Through this curtain of rain, he could also see a few details. In this freezing rain environment, low-altitude drones can be eliminated. A large lump of ice will fall in less than a few minutes. Gang Xiong was expressionless. He tapped the edge of the sand table with his finger. What else? Ba-Tu was stunned, and Noise began to laugh mischievously. At the same time, the blank area in the sky above the projection showed the avatars and simple information of the 5 targets. Professional bodyguards with ability, former military deep blue walkers, and this, a humanoid infrasound array. Every time Noise mentioned a person's characteristics, a circle of special colored areas lit up in the projection area. Chinikuan's sensing range is approximately 30 meters. God's ability is a bit worse, approximately 20 meters. But you have to pay attention to the car parked beside the dormitory building. It is equipped with extremely sensitive sensing equipment. It is recommended that you don't use high-powered equipment within a 2-kilometer radius. Within 100 meters, you can view him as a mental sensing expert. Only now did Ba-Tu know that Noise could actually capture information about the target's mental sensing range and reproduce it. It was truly inconceivable that his scouting ability could be displayed to such an extent. Noise had long since gotten used to this job. Of course, there's that youngster. Let's do a zoom. Alright, we need to expand the range of the model. At least 3 kilometers. That shameless little fellow has a sensing radius of 3 kilometers. Ba-Tu was stunned. Radius or diameter? Noise chuckled. Are your ears not good? I said it was a radius. Everyone's luck is pretty good. We're separated by 2 blocks and diverged by 500 meters. Otherwise, we would be carefully considering how to resolve the awkwardness. Resolve the awkwardness? It should be said that they were running for their lives. While Ba-Tu rejoiced, he still found it somewhat hard to believe. A sensing range of 3 kilometers. Could that fellow be an extraordinary? Noise ignored him and continued with his work. Next, dark scars hung down one after another in the projection area. Gang Xiong was rather interested. What is this? I don't know. In any case, it's very irritating. Back when I was stuffed into the military prison and had my ass busted, it was more or less the same feeling. Just this information alone can be sold for 1,000,000 or 800,000 without a problem. If any of you dare leak it out, you'll be my enemy. Ba-Tu's head was a bit swollen. If it really is 3 kilometers, any frontal operation is meaningless. Discussing this topic is really meaningless. Gang Xiong casually waved his hand, moving the 3 most threatening figures to one side and gathering the other 2 normal people in the middle. If these 5 people are all staying at the charity hall tonight, there's practically nothing we can do apart from forcefully attacking. This is the worst-case scenario. I'll consider canceling this operation. Ba-Tu nodded. I agree. Gang Xiong sneered. That's not very likely. The charity hall isn't a hotel, and our pioneers aren't idiots. From Ba-Tu's understanding, the so-called pioneer should be Quantum Holdings. According to the intelligence channels of the 2 partners, Luo Nan's group arriving at the Santa Maria Charity Hall had traces of Quantum Corporation's operations. Perhaps the other side also wanted to catch them off guard. Gang Xiong didn't care. We're only considering the latter scenario. This woman and her manager will leave. Maybe they'll give her a bodyguard. Maybe they won't. But no matter what, we're keeping an eye on her. A diversion? Don't speak nonsense. Gang Xiong swept his ice-cold gaze over. You must have forgotten this. His finger pointed at the core position marked on the sand table. Our target is this Rui Wen. She's also someone who dealt with Quantum Corporation's Deep Blue Walker Squad. It's said that her close combat abilities are extremely strong. Do you want to verify it? Gang Xiong waved his hand without waiting for Batu to respond. If we really touch her, our plan will pretty much be finished. So we're only considering her. Gang Xiong flicked his finger, forming fine ripples on the projected virtual interface. It doesn't matter how many people leave. We only want her. Get rid of the bodyguard and send the manager's head back. Also, Noise, it's time for you to show off. We need to record an additional video. Is it the kind I like the most? Noise's wide mouth opened, revealing white teeth and a purple tongue. Together with the light and shadow on the sand table, it formed a strange image. Can I let loose and play? Steel, you can always get to where I itch the most. That woman's waist and legs are too great. She's definitely a good gun rack. I'll take good care of her. I'll just break her 2 arms. Gang Xiong didn't pay attention to Noise's wild imagination. He just zoomed in on the projected area again, making the map show a wider area to plan the subsequent route. Putt Company's mercenaries will be useful after the attack begins. Stop them on the spot and delay the other side's rescue speed. It'll also give him time to watch the video. I hope you've made sufficient preparations. We've prepared 4 teams, and we've also prepared a wonderful disturbance. Batu was quite confident in his profession, but right now he was a bit unsure. But Mr. Gang Xiong, are you sure you want to make a move on that person's sister? If you mess up. We're cooperating with your company because we like your operational abilities. We have a good target to frame, right? That's right, but... No buts. That young man himself is worth 16 billion, but he definitely shouldn't tie himself to the future power of this planet. He and his family don't have this right. Gang Xiong acted like a philosopher. His thick lips cracked open. If he can survive, he might even be able to foil our operation tonight. But for a long period of time, he'll have to face similar situations. I hope he can make a choice in time. Otherwise, he'll definitely be running for his life until there's nothing left to look forward to. Batu didn't say anything, but he made up his mind to apply for a transfer after this. Otherwise, he might end up as cannon fodder. Gang Xiong concluded, what he does in the future has nothing to do with me. I need opportunities and time. I just want long legs. F*CK, 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 Noise responded loudly, getting more and more agitated. Gang Xiong still didn't care and continued planning the route. Our retreat direction is the sea. The closest place is the south coast. We can also avoid the Lilan district in the northeast. Oh, Gang Xiong, hurry up and start. My crotch is about to explode. As he spoke, Noise actually began to loosen his belt. He completely disregarded the current situation. This fellow was a complete pervert. I won't cut your thing, but I can pull out your throat. Gang Xiong finally issued a warning. Batu let out a sigh of relief when he saw Gang Xiong restraining him. But he soon realized something. His expression quickly changed. Go to the sea? That's not what we originally agreed on. Yes. You want to enter the wilderness and use your outstanding ability to fish in troubled waters. And this is what we need. But if we head there directly, we need to traverse the entire city of Xia City. With the coverage of the psychic wave network, I don't think we have this opportunity. The sea is completely unobstructed. We can first enter the sea and then circle around the defensive line of the coastal defense forces. We can land ashore and cut into the interior from Mahjong. Although we'll take a long detour, we'll be able to catch many people off guard. Gang Xiong moved the core of the projection back to the charity hall. Before that, don't forget. Before we reach the sea, all we have are hostages and bargaining chips. The most important thing is how to get our hands on the target. Our boss is waiting in the open sea. Mr. Jin Tong? Ba Tu subconsciously felt a bit of reverence when he heard news of extraordinaries. Gang Xiong was even calmer. Boss Jin is coming from the sea. Of course we have to go to the sea. Otherwise, do you really think that Ouyang Chen and the martial monarch are watchdogs and ant queens? You won't take them out of their nest? Ba Tu was stunned for a few seconds before saying, of course it's great to have Mr. Jin Tong holding the line. But I'll have to talk to the higher-ups about the direction. Gang Xiong waved his hand. Do as you wish, but don't waste time. Ba Tu walked out with a gloomy face. He heard noises clamor behind him. How many times do you think I should fire? 70, 80, or 90 times? You believe I can do it, right? Shut up. No. You can't handle my enthusiasm. Ugh. A muffled explosion seemed to ring out in the room. The voice came to a screeching halt. Ba Tu rejoiced that Gang Xiong had finally taken precautions. When he closed the door, he turned his head to look, but he saw Noise's mouth open. Noise's hands were hanging down, and the waistband of his pants fell to the ground, revealing the toy inside. It was truly an eyesore. But the important thing now was that dark red liquid was surging out of Noise's mouth. His eyes, nostrils, and ears were all the same. Enemy attack, long-range sniper. This was Ba Tu's first reaction. He instantly fell to the ground, and at the same time, he exerted force in his legs and moved backwards. He even pulled the door and closed it, blocking the sniper's line of sight. His reaction could not be said to be slow. But at this moment, blazing red light shot out, filling the room in an instant, blasting the closed outer door into pieces. Ba Tu also saw that the color of the projection area was already completely covered in blood red, and the corresponding outline was rapidly becoming blurry. But in that patch of blood red light, there was clearly a shadow that looked like a mix of a spider and a human. It was ugly and malevolent, as if a nightmare had leapt into reality. Facing this demonic shadow, Ba Tu actually did not know whether the red light came from the projection or from the void. He only saw Gang Xiong take a defensive stance. His body shone with a metallic luster as he roared and retreated. At this moment, Ba Tu had already smashed open the door of the opposite room and slid in. But in just 1/100th of a second, the red light had already covered him. The most terrible thing was that the energy of this red light did not rush outwards, but was pulling in the opposite direction. It was like an invisible whirlpool, forcefully pulling Ba Tu's body towards the area where the blood-red light was the thickest. That center might be the fatal gates of hell. Ah! Ba Tu desperately stretched out his hand, wanting to grab the door frame of the opposite room. But the moment his fingers touched the frame, the suction suddenly disappeared. He slammed onto the ground, his head dizzy and his legs weak. He subconsciously turned around to take a look. The destruction of the equipment in the room was expected, but the destructive power was not as great as he had imagined. In front of the sand table, Gang Xiong stood with his back facing the door. He did not move, but his body seemed to be trembling non-stop. Mr. Gang Xiong? Ba Tu asked in a probing manner. Before he finished speaking, he saw Gang Xiong's enormous body instantly bend and twist. His muscles and bones shrunk into a ball amidst the fine tearing sounds. Then, it suddenly stretched, collapsed, and shattered. The same fate also included those operatives on the ground. An invisible force field covered the entire room, leading everything, but Ba Tu would rather believe that it was a demonic plate of flesh and blood that came from hell. The tearing sound that made one's teeth ache finally turned into a muffled explosion. Blood fog filled the room, and in front of the wantonly smeared colors, Ba Tu's mind was blank. But in his wide-open eyes, a figure was reflected. The blood fog that enveloped his body gradually became clear. Gangxiong? He knew he called the wrong name without saying it, but Batu still could not help it. Where the blood fog gathered, that person turned around. This was a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. Compared to the human-shaped giant bear Gangxiong, he was much thinner, but his body was also very strong. He was naked, not wearing a single thread of clothing. His eyes swept across the room, and finally fixed on Batu's. Batu swore that he had never seen such a cold and empty gaze. Those eyes seemed to be filled with countless layers of black fog, and he could never see them clearly, but why did he feel that they were so familiar? Chapter 506. As his body gradually approached the surface of the sea, the light, sound, and subtle changes in temperature from the shallow water, as well as the lazily swimming fishes and shrimps, formed a vivid picture. Zhang Yingying's mind seemed to have melted into this shallow sea. Only the white rainbow was still vibrating, as if it hadn't had enough. Who? Zhang Yingying's head popped out of the sea and shook her head. Her cheeks touched some fine floating ice. These translucent ice shards floated and sank on the surface of the sea. Just by glancing at them, one could feel the bone-piercing cold. She didn't care about this. She just took a breath of air that she hadn't breathed in for a long time, and cold water droplets fell. Compared to the seawater, the freezing rain falling from the sky was even colder. It was said that this freezing rain, which was outside of the forecast, had been entrenched in Xia City for nearly 10 hours, and there were still no signs of it stopping. Zhang Yingying stepped on the water unhurriedly. At the same time, she exhaled the old and inhaled the new. She adapted to the temperature difference of nearly 20 degrees inside and outside the sea. Her improved physical fitness quickly suppressed the slight discomfort. After her body felt more comfortable, she blew a breath of air at the surface of the floating ice. The air that should have been warm blew out a sharp and cold smell. A shallow crack extended from the surface of the sea in front of him until it reached 30 meters away before disappearing. Bai Hong's power continues to increase. I can now be considered a sword fairy who can kill people with a breath. Zhang Yingying licked the corner of her lips. She had to admit that her lips and tongue were a little numb just now, and there was a small crack on the inside of her lips. This was the price of acting tough. Compared to the rapid advancement of the white rainbow innate skill, the strength of her body was actually unable to keep up. This was a rather bizarre matter. It could be said that his body and soul were out of balance, but it was a bit different. He would have to ask Her Majesty Empress Wu for guidance when he returned. Of course, they could consult him at any time. She had been bored at the bottom of the sea for almost 10 days, so she had to relax no matter what. Today just so happened to be Sunday. Taking a few of his best friends out for a walk or two in the wilderness would be the happiest thing in life. With that in mind, Zhang Yingying also turned on the Hexier's voice connection function. Soon, a series of push notifications sounded. At this time, she had already arrived at the bottom of the cliff facing the sea with the push of the waves. She skillfully jumped and climbed the cliff. The most eye-catching message came from Bai Xinyan. The weather in Xia City was clearly gloomy and damp, with freezing rain falling down. But the selfie of these sisters was a picture of the sun shining brightly and the sea of palms. Especially the angle of her selfie, it was obvious that she was lying on a beach chair. The photo was taken from her chest, revealing not only her crazy long legs, but also her first-class curves. Under the sunlight, her white jade-like skin was even more dazzling. Bai Xinyan's self-evaluation of this photo, which was enough to make men lick their screens, was, "Enjoy the sunshine, cherish life." Zhang Yingying liked the post and commented, "Slut, who are you trying to seduce with old photos?" Ding dong, the other side actually replied within seconds, "It's obviously the latest." New? Only then did Zhang Yingying realize that something was wrong. At this time, another voice rang out. It was still by Xian Yan, using this to seduce a 16-year-old boy. Will he be forgiven? Starting from 3 years, but for an old woman like you, it's a huge profit. Why does this sound so wrong? She sent him a private message. Where are you? Let's go shopping. Hee, in Chan City, you can't enjoy two kinds of holidays. When did you get there? Last night in Xia City. The weather isn't good, so hurry up and run. Zhang Yingying clicked her tongue. She felt that it was strange. She understood her friend's personality very well. The more senseless her words were, the more often there was a deeper meaning behind them. Did something happen? Bai Xinyan didn't say anything more to her. See you in spring. You have to seize the moment to enjoy life and the sunshine. It was as if she had a terminal illness. Tui. Zhang Yingying wanted to ask a few more questions, but at this time, the topic she had been paying attention to was updated. It was on the headquarters website. Her Majesty Empress Wu had personally issued the RT-8313 Honor Points mission. It was supposed to be a historical number of people replying to the mission, and it was a benign exchange of pointers. But now, that loathsome REE and her inventions of Spray Pot Man and Summer Blow had led it astray. It had become a battlefield for territorial killings. If it weren't for the fact that she was at a critical juncture in her cultivation, Zhang Yingying would have long since taken command and gone to war with those scum from headquarters. She hadn't vented in time, so she had been holding her breath. She maintained a high degree of attention and intense obsession with the situation over there. But what the hell was with this pushed news? Who gave this news to? Holy crap. Exploration News Agency, Xia City, December 9th. The Xia City Security Bureau has confirmed on the evening of the 8th that riots occurred in many areas of the city, resulting in many deaths. The Xia City Police Department has posted on their official social media accounts that the riots occurred around 2200 hours on the 8th. They involve a wide area, and the composition of the participants is complex. At present, 47 people have died in the riots. Of the 24 administrative districts of Xia City, 12 have already entered a state of emergency. The press release was in a rigid format, but the explosive content made people dumbfounded. Zhang Yingying was like this. She had already climbed to the middle section of the cliff where she was temporarily resting in her little nest. She didn't have the mood to rest after seeing this news. She didn't even change out of her diving suit. She continued to climb and jump. She crossed over 2 layers of road and arrived at the very top of the cliff. It was also the highest point of the surrounding coastline. She climbed high and looked into the distance. She saw small patrol boats shuttling back and forth in the distant sea. She could even faintly see the silhouette of large warships on the surface of the sea even further away. She looked inland. There were very few vehicles on the Huanhai Highway. There were only a few armored vehicles. Could it be that there was a coup? Zhang Yingying subconsciously opened the topic page and unmuted the many discussion groups. Sure enough, whether it was the headquarters internet or the Xia City psychic wave network, the atmosphere had already exploded. There were far too many and too messy messages. Just RT-8313 alone had several thousand replies in a single night. There were many new memes interspersed within them. At first glance, it seemed as if it had been abandoned by history. Zhang Yingying could only start from the last floor she paid attention to. She climbed up the floors one by one to revise. She also read the news to make up for her lessons. It didn't take long for her to find the most important floor amidst the flood of replies. It was probably due to the excitement that caused his hands to tremble and his tongue to tremble. The speaker left behind a paragraph of confusing logic and subtle meaning. I don't know if it's drooping or not. I only know that Grandma's dripping sword is too terrifying. Her terror in Xia City is multiplied by 2. Fortunately, this message was accompanied by a more realistic video. Combined with the content of the video, it should be nighttime in Xia City. A large number of police cars and related police personnel were parked at the intersection of the streets. They were densely packed, but what was even more eye-catching was a corpse being carried out from the crowd. The person who recorded the video should be an internal member of the police. They even had the opportunity to do a close-up of the corpse's face. At first, the camera didn't capture the main point. It wavered on the corpse's fine armor, body characteristics, and other aspects. But soon, the person who recorded the video focused on the corpse's head. The eyes, nose, and mouth were all dark with blood. Especially the eyes. They were abnormally swollen. The crystal in one of the eye sockets had already exploded, leaving behind a black and red blood clot. What does this have to do with the dripping sword? It was a thoughtless message left by someone who didn't know the ropes. In the blink of an eye, people from all walks of life were educated. Please seriously watch Her Majesty Empress Wu's teaching video. This is how the dripping sword dies when it hits the eyes. This is the result of the dripping sword stabbing into the eye socket and then exploding after striking the brain. The cranial pressure rapidly rises, causing the 7 orifices to bleed. This person's brain is certainly already a lump of paste. There might even be brain juice in the blood flowing out of the 5 orifices. If you ask me, this appearance may look scary, but it's actually not the best. The most brilliant method should be to simply destroy the brain tissue, causing a person to die without a sound. But this method is too smoky. Although the last comment was a bit pretentious, it was still relatively pertinent. Quite a few people expressed their approval. But the facts proved that this pretentious criminal had revealed his true colors too early. The person who first uploaded the video soon posted a second video. Following the video, fully armed corpses were carried out one after another. The entire comments section trembled. How many people have died in total? From what I can see, there are no less than 15. I looked at it frame by frame. The video shows 17 people. At the end of the video, the camera turned to a skyscraper on the side of the street. The words Xia City XXX Hotel were written on it, proving the location. What happened to Xia City? The 17 people all died in the same way. They were all armed and armed personnel. The time of death seems to be relatively close. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like they were tortured to death. In other words, the time of death of these people is very close. Perhaps it was only a few breaths of time. The one who used the dripping sword was actually a machine gun user, right? Some people didn't even have the safety on their guns. In the end, how simple were their deaths? Requesting ultra-clear pictures of the scene of the incident. As long as one stayed on this topic, most of them would be practitioners and enthusiasts of the dripping sword. What they loved the most was to analyze the structure of the dripping sword and unearth its potential. Therefore, when the 2 videos came out, the enthusiasm of the people rapidly exploded. And just as the people were discussing this scene spiritedly, it was already the 9th. In other words, it was around 5 o'clock in the morning. What followed was the news that Zhang Yingying had seen before. It made all the ability users who were paying attention to this matter understand, the death toll and the scene of the incident were far from what they understood from the video. There were less than 20 corpses at the scene. Where were the rest? Did they die in the same way? Did I float in the air the wrong way? Zhang Yingying couldn't help but ridicule herself. The atmosphere of Xia City was a complete mess overnight. As for herself, she couldn't help but think of a certain spray pot man when she saw the dripping sword. But even if she thought about it with her toes, this sort of pure slaughter wasn't something a child would do. As for the machine gun style killing technique, aside from Her Majesty the Empress Wu, she really hadn't seen anyone else perform a similar demonstration. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, a new related push notification arrived. It was a link to a live broadcast. She subconsciously clicked on it and saw a capable and experienced woman give a thumbs up from behind the screen. Frontline dispatch, life combustion. I am a battlefield reporter who accidentally traveled to Xia City. Chapter 507. Zhang Ji sounded like she could fight, but she was a rather famous female streamer. She boasted that she was a war reporter, so she shortened it to Zhang Ji. But because her appearance was even more outstanding, she received the beautiful name of Zhang Ji. Her hard power wasn't outstanding, but she was very sensitive to news. She was also super bold, often appearing on the front lines of conflicts in the inner world. Many times, she was in a very difficult situation. There were even a few times when she was shocked to death by the shockwaves of a battle between experts. Many viewers loved this kind of tone. They called it immersion. Now, she was in Xia City. When the live broadcast officially began, Zhang Ji even played a short clip that she had made at the last minute. It was a general summary of the news and intelligence related to the Xia City riots from last night until now. The 20-second clip could be considered simple and to the point. Coupled with the bullet comments from some well-informed people in the live broadcast room, it basically explained the state of affairs through public channels clearly. But in these 20 seconds, Zhang Yingying couldn't help but pout. She had no prejudice against Zhang Ji, but she wanted to see the real thing. What was the point of Shui Man's live broadcast? Fortunately, Zhang Ji soon officially appeared on the screen. Right now, Xia City was still raining. A thin layer of ice had formed on the ground, but Zhang Ji didn't hold an umbrella. She just wore a windbreaker that seemed more suitable for living in the wild. She stood in the rain and began the live broadcast. She spoke very quickly, but her enunciation was clear. Good morning, friends. Xia City is currently in a state of emergency due to reasons known to all. This highly effective killing mode suspected to be the dripping sword is very eye-catching. Many friends hope to obtain more detailed information. But I must be honest. I originally didn't prepare for this live broadcast. The reason is that I didn't gather enough explosive information. Until 3 minutes ago, I unexpectedly encountered an opportunity. Zhang Ji used a floating selfie tool to broadcast. The operation was simple and flexible. She turned her head and the camera automatically followed, turning to the opposite side of the street. Across the street is the Santa Maria Church Hospital. I previously obtained reliable information from the Xia City Police. Please note, this isn't that opportunity. This is just a routine process of gathering material. The live broadcast room was immediately filled with blood-red words. Zhang Ji is playing tricks again. Kill this malicious person. If you continue to ruin my character, lying in the hospital won't be the limit. Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes when she saw that the main topic was still not being discussed. She immediately exited, leaving only a small interface and sound effects on the screen as she continued to climb through the RT-8313 mission thread. A few seconds later, Zhang Ji's voice continued. According to the police report, inside Santa Maria Church Hospital, there was a case related to last night's so-called riot, and many corpses were found. The time of death was around 22 to 22:30 last night. Now, let me highlight something important. The time of death reported in the police video circulating on the internet was also around 22 to 22:30 last night. Zhang Yingying, who was studying upstairs, was stunned for a moment. She switched the interface back. The live broadcast room also switched to a map of the administrative divisions of Xia City. There were 2 circles and a line drawn on it. Santa Maria Church Hospital is located in the southern city district of Xia City. The location shown in the police video is located in the Nader district to the northeast. The straight line distance between the 2 locations is 48 kilometers. Zhang Ji had done quite a bit of homework over the course of the night. She used her usual high speed of speech to pour in a lot of useful information. She finally revealed the value of this live broadcast. Now that I've said this, I might as well expand a bit. According to the internal report, the police have discovered 47 corpses. They are distributed in 4 locations. Aside from these 2 locations, there are also the Pingjiang district and the River Wu district. Those 2 locations are on the west side of Xia City. They are far from each other. If we draw a one-way route and pass through these 4 locations, the distance will reach 149 kilometers. Okay, let's get to the main topic. After the map marked out a few relevant locations, it immediately disappeared and Zhang Ji's figure appeared once again. She pulled down her half-wet hood, as if she was deliberately covering her face. She appeared very cautious and cautious. Just like before, I don't know if today's live broadcast will be able to proceed smoothly. After all, this doesn't depend on me. It depends on luck, as well as the heart of the target god. The live broadcast room immediately spammed with 666. The audience used this ancient method to encourage and applaud Zhang Ji's continuous death-seeking behavior. Who do I need to tail today? Oh, Yang Chen, since he's in Xia City. Isn't it better to just go to Shangbing Building and knock on the door? Then Her Majesty Empress Wu? If I may be so bold, you guys are off topic, okay? Zhang Ji didn't care about what was going on in the live broadcast room. She took a deep breath and walked across the street. She had only walked halfway when her figure suddenly stopped. She almost reflexively lowered her head. And at this moment, the selfie lens intelligently shifted and locked onto the opposite side of the street. There were two people walking over from the sidewalk next to the hospital. The audience in the live broadcast room naturally focused their attention over there. Through the curtain of rain, they could see that the two people were both men. They weren't too old either. The one walking in front looked to be in his early 20s. He wore a thin sweater in the -10-degree weather. He had a youthful and sporty style. The colors and styles of his pants and shoes seemed to be a random mix and match. There wasn't any order to it. In comparison, the young man in his early 30s was a lot more mature. He was also a lot more particular. He had a robust buzz cut and a casual suit. Although it was simple, it gave off a very stylish vibe. However, it was this relatively older stylish man who was holding an umbrella for the young man in front of him. This seemingly odd combination happened to be walking in the opposite direction of Zhang Ji. The distance between the two was rapidly closing. The majority of the audience in the live broadcast room didn't see the background of these two people. They didn't understand why Zhang Ji was acting so nervous. However, the highly interactive mode quickly pushed the answer to the most conspicuous position. Holy crap, Tian Bang. Tian Bang? That blood prison? The number one person below the transcendence? This isn't tailing, it's a collision. The audience in the live broadcast room instantly became excited. Blood Prison, Tian Bang was undoubtedly one of the strongest people in recent times. He had a solid battle record of directly killing Mo Luan. He also had a military background and held a large number of troops. In terms of destructive power and influence, he was even more astonishing than some of the lone transcendents. Many channels were saying that if Tian Bang was given a large group of 50 or so deep blue walkers, he could even kill transcendents with the support of the integrated, formatted domain and escape unscathed. Because of this, busybodies called him the number one person below the transcendents. He was the signature of the military. Amidst the commotion in the room, Zhang Ji whispered, "Oh, this is the chance." When faced with this kind of situation, other people would have to consider the consequences. However, Zhang Ji was able to occupy a position in the inner world in such a traditional way because of her decisive action. She only used 1/10 of a second to digest her astonishment. Then she charged straight ahead and opened her mouth to say, "Hello God Tian. I'm the live broadcast host of the Zhang Ji Frontier Project. I'm called, How Long Can You Last With This Toy?" Faced with the woman who came out from the side and the filming equipment floating in the icy rain, Tian Bang's reaction exceeded almost everyone's expectations. Especially his performance of opening his eyes wide and tilting his head to look at the camera. He was the first to appear before the eyes of all the ability users watching the live broadcast. Wow, so cute. Zhang Ji has been instantly killed. What a dirty line. This was the first time the vast majority of people saw Tian Bang. It was hard to imagine that this major general of the military, who had killed a veteran B+ rank powerhouse, was actually such a down-to-earth young man. The live broadcast page immediately flooded the screen. At the same time, they expressed delight in Zhang Ji's misfortune. As for the dripping sword, the chaos in Xia City, and other such matters, they were actually secondary. But they never imagined that Tian Bang would take the initiative to extend his hand after saying the words Zhang Ji. Zhang Ji? Right? I've admired you for a long time. It's my fortune to meet you today. His genteel words coupled with his courteous and respectful attitude were like a wondrous peak in the clouds. Although it was right in front of her, it was hard to fathom her entire appearance. Zhang Ji had lost all initiative from the very first second. She stupidly extended her hand and shook hands with Tian Bang. "Do you know me?" "That's right. Frontline report, life ignition. I've seen many episodes of your Zhang Ji Frontier. After all, it involves many powerhouses, including first-hand material on extraordinaries. It's full of reference value. It's very useful to me." Zhang Ji was an ace streamer who had experienced many trials and tribulations. But when she heard Tian Bang's evaluation, she still couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. This was undoubtedly an extremely high level of praise and affirmation. Just these few words alone would cause her value to multiply. And because of this, her face flushed slightly. Her brain was a bit sluggish. She even forgot to say thank you. And all of these reactions were fed back to the live broadcast room through the camera. Wow, a soulmate. There's such a character among the burners? Super warm guy is a sure kill. Zhang Ji, steady. Don't throw yourself at him. Hurry up, wash yourself clean and get married. The live broadcast room was like a festival, and Tian Bang was gathering fans like crazy. The vast majority of people had forgotten their goal in watching the live broadcast. There were random greetings to Tian Bang, and there were also people who encouraged Zhang Ji and Tian Bang to tour Xia City hand in hand. In short, the topic was a complete mess. That's enough. As a member of the audience, Zhang Yingying had the urge to switch to another page. And at this time, Zhang Ji, the streamer, had actually calmed down. Even though the live broadcast was superb, from a professional point of view, she was completely being led around by Tian Bang. For an outstanding streamer who pursued independence and excitement, this was absolutely intolerable. She secretly bit the tip of her tongue, waking herself up from her dazed state. Her mind spun like lightning, and she took advantage of the situation to say, "Major General Tian's healing power is superb. He's even more amazing than a large number of psychologists I've seen. By the way, I just saw you come out of the hospital." Tian Bang was all smiles as he interrupted her. "It wasn't the hospital, it was the charity hall attached to the hospital. I just went to see a friend, but the door was shut in my face." The topic had flown off again. Under these extraordinary circumstances, who would believe that Tian Bang, as a representative of the military, would specifically go to a case-related area just to see a friend? Tian Bang's slippery manner made Zhang Ji feel quite defeated. Interviews and the like really weren't her forte. She should have followed the public opinion and tailed him. However, Zhang Ji was a bit curious. What kind of friend would a character like Tian Bang have at the charity hall? And why would he bluntly shut himself in? Could it be that he was a super volunteer hidden in the city? After thinking for a bit, Zhang Ji probingly asked, "That friend of yours, he's not here?" "He's not seeing any guests. I'm thinking that it's probably because he didn't bring any gifts to visit. So I'm preparing to mend the pen after the sheep is lost. I'm going to help him kill a few people to make my attitude clear." Chapter 508. Tian Bang didn't refuse Zhang Ji following him. He tacitly agreed to the live broadcast, but he didn't actually kill anyone. Instead, he swallowed the vicious words he was about to spit out without a change in expression. "I was just joking. Don't take it seriously. My words sound like I'm destroying people. I'm destroying you first, okay?" Zhang Ji ridiculed him in her mind. At this time, under the curtain of rain, Tian Bang was strolling along the sidewalk. The man with the buzz cut beside him seemed to be a subordinate officer called Zhu Ling. He was meticulously holding an umbrella for Tian Bang. "God, hurry up and get things on the right track." Zhang Ji tightened her jacket. She felt the freezing rain grow colder and more bone-piercing. But she couldn't let go of this opportunity. After a few steps, she finally asked a question she had been suppressing in her heart for a long time. "Major General Tian, what do you think of the riot in Xia City last night?" From a professional point of view, can you give us your opinion on that killing method that seems like the dripping sword? Tian Bang laughed and shook his head. Zhang Ji, we're familiar with each other, right? This again. Zhang Ji didn't want to beat around the bush, but she had no ability to refuse Tian Bang's seemingly polite but actually forceful approach. Yes, yes. Then, I'll be impolite and correct a mistake. You said last night's riot in Xia City. That's incorrect. Huh? Zhang Ji blinked. Are you saying that the riot is still going on? I'm saying that as long as the Xia City government hasn't lifted the state of emergency, the riot will continue. Even if it doesn't erupt for a while, the seeds of an eruption will be planted at any time. Everyone should have faith in the judgment of the government, right? It sounded reasonable, but it didn't feel right. Tian Bang faced the camera and seemed to be very cooperative with the live broadcast. Currently, Xia City has tightened entry procedures. Quite a number of people will be denied entry to the city. It's very likely that everyone will make a wasted trip. It's fine if it's a wasted trip, but you might even lose your life. That's not worth it. So, it's best to be cautious if you want to travel, visit friends, or do business in Xia City. Zhang Ji never knew that the Grand Blood Prison was a chatterbox. She struggled to find valuable information from Tian Bang's words. But before she could ask, Tian Bang took the initiative to change the topic. Oh right, you said the Dripping Sword massacre in Nade district last night. Has it spread to the entire world? He looked at the camera innocently. However, the live stream viewers who had been led around in circles were no longer buying it. Continue acting. Stop acting cute. He's a big shot in the military, he doesn't know. Hee. If he doesn't know the inside story, I'll cut off his head and feed it to Zhang Ji as a chamber pot. Zhang Ji rejected the human head chamber pot. She carefully tried to maintain the direction of the conversation. There are at least tens of thousands of replies to the RT-8313 mission post about the dripping sword technique. I think this matter has already spread throughout the Wilderness Explorers Association. Tian Bang shook his head and sighed. RT-8313, how nostalgic. Back then, I was also a pure-hearted youth who fawned on Her Majesty Wu Huang. Because of the nature of my ability, my dripping sword technique was very ordinary, but I had some experience with the heart-burning blade. Here he comes again. The viewers in the live streaming channel were furious. The passerby fans who had just formed a circle were instantly blackened. We've circled around to the burning heart blade. Are you bragging? Ah, Zhang Ji, don't give him another chance. Uncle Police, hurry up and drag this chatterbox away. Someone shouldn't be called Tian Bang. Call him Tian Quan. Sure enough, eating too many donuts is bad for your health. The live streaming channel was flooded with donuts in an instant. Zhang Ji felt that she had already lost control of the live streaming channel. Fine, she had never been the type of streamer who had strong control. Her most outstanding ability was still courting death. She clenched her teeth when faced with the slippery Tian Bang. She directly courted death. Major General Tian, you specifically mentioned Her Majesty Wu Huang. Are you implying that the commotion in Xia City is related to her? Tian Bang stared at her with wide eyes. In the end, he clapped his hands and said, as expected, you have the attributes of a reporter. Your imagination is quite admirable. Why don't you explain it in depth? Zhang Ji wasn't afraid of anything since she was already madly sprinting along the path of courting death. She no longer paid attention to the live streaming channel. She just repeated the analysis of the locations and distances she had done before. Then she concluded, the 4 locations of the crime are practically the same way of death. Although the time of the crime is extremely close, it is possible to accomplish all of this within half an hour if one has astonishing movement speed. In reality, there is no need to use an extraordinary. A B-rank powerhouse, whose specialty is speed, is more or less the same. The true difficulty lies in the raindrop sword. And to be able to use the raindrop sword as a machine gun. Her Majesty Wu Huang is the inheritor of the technique. She should have more information than others. Zhang Ji shrunk back in the end. It was true that she wanted to create big news, but as a reporter, she would be punished by the heavens if she sang a one-woman show. At this time, Tianbang sighed. Zhang Ji, you don't have enough material. You must know that there are some matters that exceed the scope of normal logic. For example, when it comes to the time of death. I can tell you with great certainty that there is no such thing as half an hour. According to the scene surveillance obtained by the police, the time of the crime at the 4 locations you know of is within 5 minutes of the first and last time. Tianbang extended his hand and spread his fingers apart. He flipped them in front of the camera so that everyone could see clearly. 5 minutes? Also, the crime locations aren't limited to the 4 locations you know of. There is an even more exciting one nearby. Zhang Ji and I will take everyone there to experience it. Donut, Tianbang had finally revealed valuable information after being shrouded in mystery. He had even overstepped his boundaries and seized the anchor's position. There was no doubt that the continuous news had a considerable impact on the logic of the live broadcast participants. Zhang Yingying, who had been paying attention to the live broadcast, entered the office's work group and sent 2 rows of dumbfounded emojis. Of course, she didn't forget to send the live broadcast link. Did Her Majesty really make a move? Why do I feel like it makes sense? Yingying, why are you putting the blame on Her Majesty? It doesn't matter if it's Her Majesty or not. I think it's more appropriate to ask Boss Luo what he means. I seem to have exposed something. Sure enough, there are people who think so, right? Children who tell the truth deserve a spanking. So I'm not the only one who thinks so. More than one person plus one. More than one person plus 2. Cowards who don't dare to tell the truth are shivering in the corner. 10 days of seclusion had indeed been abandoned by the world. Zhang Yingying was full of question marks. Finally, she couldn't help but send a message in the group. Boss Luo? Luo Nan? What's up with him? Soon, a large amount of information poured out from the work group. Zhang Yingying only glanced at it twice before she sunk in. The strong wind and freezing rain fell from the high cliff, hitting her face with a slight pain. She didn't pay attention to it. It was during this process that her expression gradually darkened. 2 minutes later, Zhang Yingying gave Bai Xinyan a call. However, the friend she had just been interacting with for fun not too long ago had completely disappeared. Some time later, Tianbang and Zhang Ji crossed 2 street blocks and arrived at the rumored crime scene. This place had indeed been placed under layers of police surveillance. There were no other people in the enormous office building aside from police personnel. With Tianbang there, the group entered the office building without a hitch. However, Zhang Ji still put on a serious expression for the sake of avoiding trouble. She did her best to match the military style of Tianbang and Bai Xinyan. Even though Tianbang himself didn't have such a temperament to speak of. The crime scene was located on the 75th floor of the office building. There were already police personnel standing guard on this floor when the 3 arrived, but there weren't many relevant technicians. The investigation work had yet to officially begin. Zhang Ji had just stepped out of the elevator when she suddenly saw a corpse lying on its back in the corridor. The time of the crime at this scene? It's as you think. It's pretty much the same as other places. It's been almost 10 hours. Isn't the scene preserved a little too well? Because the police really did just get the news. Got the news? Tianbang faintly smiled. He led Zhang Ji around the corpse and into the studio of the first crime scene. The room was a mess, but it basically maintained the same appearance as last night. It wasn't damaged. There were some splashes of blood on the floor and the workbench, but there were no other corpses. Since Tianbang was cooperating, Zhang Ji didn't hold back. She quickly recorded the surrounding situation and even gave the corpse a close-up shot. The people in the live broadcast room were all ability users. They had a high tolerance for corpses, but they were a bit more curious. Who knows this person? Why did Tianbang come personally? Passerby. I've never seen him before. Xia City has come out to receive guests. Has anyone seen him before? Zhang Ji, reach out and check the rigidity of the corpse and the livor mortis. This wasn't the first time Zhang Ji had done something like this. She turned to look at Tian Bang. Can I? If Tian Bang agreed, she would make her move. However, Tian Bang sent her a smile. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I still have basic information. He turned his head and the buzz-cut man Zhu Ling reported the relevant information. Tuesday, head of Put Service Company Xia City Branch Operation. Ability level C+. This person died at 22:13 on the evening of the 8th. From the information provided by Put Service, the company's partners, subordinate operation teams, and mercenaries also died and went missing at the same time. A total of 42 people. Zhang Ji was stunned when she heard this number. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Have these people entered the official statistics? They haven't. But this place is very close to the Santa Maria Church Hospital. The people who died there are two different groups from Put Service Company. The people in the hospital are members of another company's operation team. In fact, the Santa Maria Church Hospital itself is indirectly controlled by that company to handle some special affairs. It's a pity that the core members were all wiped out last night. Tian Bang waved his hand. The hospital probably can't continue operating now. There's still a lot to be done. The live broadcast finally entered a virtuous cycle with the continuous explosion of explosive news. 666666. I think I'm seeing the faces of Xia City's officials who have nothing left to live for. 47 plus 42 is equal to 99. One more and they'll be slaughtering 100 people. The first 10 died early. You'll help kill the other 10? Even so, it's still extremely fierce. Just which great god is it? Hurry up and retract your divine ability. At the end of the year 2096, a great demon has finally seized the position. Xia City can be said to be the #1 demon den. There's nothing wrong with a demon den. Demon your mother. Cave your sister. Xia Chui, open up. You blind bastard. Didn't you see Donut just say a bunch of operation teams and operation teams? Also, Put Service Company is a professional assassin and mercenary service. They have a bunch of F*King armed personnel. They clearly want to stir up trouble. In the blink of an eye, the live broadcast room turned into a killing field. After Zhang Ji recovered from her initial astonishment, she keenly grasped a few sensitive points. How can Batu's time of death be accurate down to the minute? It's not a problem to be accurate down to the second. There's surveillance. There was nothing wrong with Tian Bang's answer. He even had Zhu Ling show it to Zhang Ji. Thus, Zhang Ji watched the entire process of Batu dodging, sucking back, struggling, and finally lying on his back like a corpse from the surveillance video. The surveillance video showed that it was indeed 22:13 last night. But, where's the person who did it? There's only a portion of the surveillance video in the hallway. That person never walked out. This style of doing things was truly too hateful. Zhang Ji calmed herself down. Her gaze and the camera turned back to Batu's corpse. Whether it was her or some of the viewers in the live broadcast room, they all discovered one thing: Batu's death wasn't due to his eyeballs and brain exploding. This person's heart had collapsed. But for the 32 mercenaries downstairs and the surrounding streets, the cause of death is definitely the dripping sword. Zhang Ji was startled. That's 33. There's still 9? Nominally, they're missing. But, Tian Bang extended his hand and circled around. They're all here. The DNA of 9 people was tested in the bloodstains in the room. Basically, it can be explained that their corpses didn't exist. All that's left is this. He bent down to pick up a twisted metal structure on the ground and casually tossed it. It was unknown who took the lead in the live broadcast room, but a series of dumbfounded emojis appeared. No other words were said. Zhang Ji asked, "What do you mean by no corpses exist? Is that they were swallowed by something? Oh, a mutant." Tian Bang gave her a thumbs up. Your imagination is rich and reasonable. I actually hope that's the case. At least there will be less trouble. However, this twisted steel throat should have come from the metal hunting group's gang Xiong. Even though that fellow was a bit stupid, he wouldn't go so far as to let a mutant swallow him and 8 ability users into its stomach without making a sound in the bustling city area. That's why I say that the current world is becoming more and more dangerous. Don't you think so, Sister Yuan? Tian Bang suddenly laughed and casually tossed the metal throat aside. He opened his arms and walked toward the door. There was a woman in professional attire there. She stepped over Batu's corpse and walked into the room. Behind her was a group of professionals in police uniform. Chapter 509. Long time no see, little sister Yuan. Come hug me. Hello? Did I call you little sister? There are so many people here. I'm too embarrassed to call you big sister. You're 15, I'm 20. You're 20, I'm 25. So what if I call you little sister? I called you big sister because I thought you were a bit pitiful when you first joined. Now that you've made a name for yourself, can't I set things right? Tian Bang entered in to follow and strike up a conversation after the woman in business attire entered the room. He chattered incessantly as if he was afraid that others wouldn't know of their relationship. He didn't pay any attention to the other police personnel. His actions were effective. Zhang Ji's camera followed them from beginning to end. The live broadcast room soon focused on them and there were bullet comments. They look like childhood sweethearts, full of adultery. Who is this? He Yuan from the Xia City branch. A retired burner from the military. She's currently the most powerful person under the Iron Triangle. That's right, that's right. It's her. She basically does routine work. And she's a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. You know about Kong Tianhe? She's the successor of a military aristocratic family. Officer she's high. Be careful, Boss Luo. What do you mean by that? The atmosphere in the live broadcast room was cheerful, but Tian Bang was already chatting to death. He helplessly raised his hands in surrender when faced with He Yuan's piercingly cold gaze. Okay, let's talk business. You saw the situation. If you had obsessive-compulsive disorder, you wouldn't be happy seeing this scene. It's clearly the same group of people, but the result is 3 ways to die. Their entire body was smashed and swallowed. Destroying hearts and taking lives doesn't have any excess power. Only the vagrant mercenaries under them can enjoy the same treatment as those on the outside. How do I say this? I had a rough idea of the severity of the situation before arriving at the scene. But now I find out that I clearly underestimated it. That person has no concept of killing people, right? Maybe it's like playing a video game? So they'll continue to die, right? He Yuan thought for a moment and finally responded, most likely they will if the matter isn't resolved. Tisk, you're so honest. It makes people despair. Just as he finished speaking, new information came in. He Yuan, Tian Bang, and several other police officers received the relevant information one after another. Only Tian Bang remembered that it was time for the live broadcast. He turned to look at the camera and read the information aloud. 4 people died at the Baibua Company's restaurant. An aircraft suddenly went out of control and crashed into the building at the entrance of the SCA branch office in Xia City. It was turned to dust by defensive weapons. There were around 7 to 10 people inside. The death toll from the riots in Xia City has officially broken 100. 100 slaughter, achieved. In essence, there was no difference between the deaths of 90 people and the deaths of 100 people. But in terms of statistics, 3-digit numbers were always more shocking than 2-digit numbers. This is a lawn mower. A large number of agree, approve, lawnmower +1 words of agreement immediately appeared in the live broadcast room. Finally, 100 floated across the sky as a conclusion to this matter. Compared to the death toll, Tian Bang and He Yuan were more concerned about the 2 new locations. Tian Bang scratched his head. It's Sunday today, and there's no overtime. I'm afraid these two groups of people were there to check out the situation and ended up like this. He already knows how to take precautions. Should I say that it's worth celebrating? This time, Hiyuain did not reply. Previously, no matter how much Tian Bang nagged, she would always meticulously walk to the scene. Now, she arrived before the metal component that Tian Bang had casually tossed aside. She lowered her eyes and sized it up thoughtfully. Tian Bang sighed. It's most likely Gang Xiong. The surveillance shows that he and the other metal hunting group members entered here last night and never left. Someone in the live broadcast room typed a question mark. Steel Bear? It's Gang Xiong, not Bear. Donut already said it before. I heard it too. I'm completely confused by Donut. He mentioned it before, but I didn't pay attention. F*CK, a beer rank died without a sound. 666666. The screen of the live broadcast room was spammed without any technical content. It drowned out some valuable discussion and information, and the gaudy bullet screen made people feel irritated. Damn it. Zhang Yingying was already beyond furious after her repeated attempts to contact by Xinyan failed. Even if she did not personally confirm it, she was certain of the nature of this matter. Did White Salt have a screw loose? What was she thinking? She hatefully exited the live broadcast room. She wanted to just turn it off, but after a moment of hesitation, she decided to keep it. She originally wanted to contact Luo Nan, but the number she got through was Bamboo Pole's number. Half a minute later, she leaped down the cliff, changed her clothes, and stepped onto the Huanhai Road. She used the privileges of the society and went through a friendly negotiation to borrow a police patrol car. She rushed to the city. On the way, she went online to check for information. The live broadcast room simply emptied the bullet screen, only looking at Hiyuain and Tian Bang's movements. On the other side, she opened up the RT-8313 mission thread and looked at the recent replies. It was clear that Zhang Ji's live broadcast had already become a hot topic. This place was also affected and was currently discussing the matter of Gang Xiong. But the traditional forum mechanism of posting and replying, as well as the group chat mode during discussions, could still carry a lot more information. Is Gang Xiong a member of the society? The metal hunting group is registered in the society, so he must be. Boss Jin Tong is probably going to explode from anger? Isn't Gang Xiong a B+? He's dead just like that? He's almost there. How many B+S are there in the entire world? It feels like they're endangered and rare animals like extraordinaries. It's fine if he's rare, but what the hell is he saying he's endangered? Less than 1,000. Less than 1,000. According to the Society's data, the vast majority of the 70,000 awakened were C rank. For example, in Xia City, there were only 14 registered architects out of the 1,000+ members. This number and ratio was second to none among the 88 branches under headquarters. Although headquarters had always been secretive about the number of ability users at B rank and above, the High Lord of the Eye of Secret Contract had made a famous judgment in the early years: masters are less than 1,000, and extraordinaries are less than 100. Weeds, flowers, and trees are scattered and difficult to form a forest. Master was the internal name of the Eye of Secret Contract. It referred to architects and B-rank powerhouses. This sentence didn't take into account the last two paragraphs. It meant that the estimated number of ability users in the entire world didn't even reach 1,000, and the number of extraordinaries didn't even reach 100. As one of the three great secret orders of the world, the authority of the Eye of Secret Contract wasn't inferior to that of the Wilderness Explorers Society. And its High Lord was ranked among the top 5 extraordinaries in the world. He was the kind of person whose spit was like a nail. Later on, someone confirmed with the High Lord of Secret Contract that there was another explanation for this sentence: architects and extraordinaries added together didn't exceed 1,000 in the entire world. And it had to be noted that this was an estimate that included the society, orders, individual investors, and even burners in the most extensive sense. Even if the society was a large organization with a lot of business, and all the heroes of the world came and monopolized half of it, there would still be no more than 500 people. At the very least, half of the B rank would be taken out. For a veteran powerhouse like Gang Xiong, it wouldn't be a problem for him to rank in the top 300 of the society. If he performed well, he could even rank in the top 200. If placed in the entire world, he would be at the level of the top 500. And then, he died just like that? Recently, the society's B rank has fallen a bit quickly. Let's not talk about Gang Xiong. There's also Snake Tongue. Sigh. I remember that Snake Tongue died in Xia City, right? No one responded to this topic, probably because it was a bit sensitive. It was also because at this time, someone copied a copy of the surveillance video that Tian Bang showed to Zhang Ji in the live broadcast room and forwarded it here. At the same time, they asked, God, please analyze. How in the world did Gang Xiong die? The video feels too fast. Is it my imagination? Someone replied, it's not your imagination. Looking at the video, it's most likely that he died in front of the Putt Company's operations supervisor. The latter has a very clear expression of horror. He probably saw the way Gang Xiong died. There's nothing else to say. It was certainly fast and ruthless. That's why he had such a reaction. A certain ID labeled Senior Intelligence Analyst explained a bit more in detail. If I were him, I'd be scared too. From the time the supervisor dodged to the time the shockwave broke through the door, to the time he sucked in air, struggled, went into a daze, and died, the span of time was 3.7 seconds. It was an instant kill, not only in name but also in reality. And looking at the scene, there aren't any obvious signs of confrontation. This proves that Gang Xiong was overwhelmed by power. At the very least, he was killed by powerful crowd control and explosive killing methods. Even if it was a sneak attack that caught him off guard, the difference in realms must exist. So, it's not the time yet. Look at this. The Senior Intelligence Analyst sent over a map. The map clearly displayed the situation of the high-end combat power of the Xia layer. Xia City has 14 B ranks and 2 transcendents. 6 of them have fleshly bodies that can be directly eliminated. This isn't a melee battlefield at all. Next, we'll eliminate those who don't meet the conditions of overwhelming and powerful crowd control and explosive. For example, Mr. Bai, who excels in hypnosis, Gao Meng, who draws talismans, and so on. Among the B ranks, only Old Yu and the Horned Demon's abilities are somewhat similar. But the Horned Demon offended Her Majesty Empress Wu. There's no way for him to return to Xia City in a short amount of time. As for Old Yu, I don't recall him ever killing anyone. Why don't you just say that there are 2 transcendents? That's the problem. Ouyang Chen has the style of a gentleman. He usually leaves some leeway when doing things. He wouldn't have such a great murderous nature. Her Majesty Empress Wu does things in a high-profile manner. She isn't afraid of people knowing what she's doing. Otherwise, this sort of situation wouldn't have occurred. Someone stabbed in from the side, there's still one more. Though he might be a bit inferior in terms of raw power, his danger level isn't low at all. The Senior Intelligence Analyst quickly replied, I know. You're talking about the legendary, humanoid infrasonic array. If there were enough corpses left here without any external injuries, he would be the first person I would think of. But there isn't. This person's ability and the Devil Ray are 2 different matters. So in order to deal with him, we first have to kill the Devil Ray, right? Your so is off topic, huh? What I mean is, to kill a powerful person like Gang Xiong through the methods shown in the video, it's either a conspiracy of some Xia City that defies their natural instincts, or it's the work of some unknown powerful person. While the Senior Intelligence Analyst was still analyzing, someone had already skipped over his long-winded explanation and directly pointed to the previous piece of information. The person above certainly didn't read the internal police report. Last night, the crime scene in Pingjiang district was at some Cloud City water village. Rumor has it that it's where the Devil Ray was stored. Huh. I seem to have seen through something. I seem to have seen through something too. Look at that Motherf *Ker. Someone's driving the tempo. Zhang Yingying hatefully sent a message in the private chat of the Psychic Wave Network. Bamboo Pole immediately replied, everyone's driving the tempo. Papercut sent a dizzy emoji, Motherf asterisk cur, it's too messy. Red Fox followed closely behind his good brother, the dagger will be revealed soon. Watch the live broadcast. Bamboo Pole reminded once more. Zhang Yingying saw this and entered the live broadcast room. She only saw He Yueyin and Tianbang conversing there. She didn't react for a moment. What are they saying? The bullet screen. Look at the bullet screen. Fuck. Cragburst also joined the discussion and directly sent a voice message. Zhang Yingying opened the bullet screen again. What entered her eyes was a field of blood red. Someone was flooding the screen with bullet screens. They were all filled with 16 billion. After scrolling for almost 10 seconds, there was a sporadic comment. What the hell? Get lost. I can't even see Officer He's beautiful face. Admin, kick this trash out. But at the same time, there were people who expressed serious curiosity. What's the number after 16? Looks like 9. It's 16 billion. What's 16 billion? There's no problem with Kong Tianhe's assets being 16 billion. Is it Officer He's net worth? Marry me. It seemed that these bored-to-death audience members were about to lead the topic astray. It was very likely that it was the same person. He once again used blood-red words to flood the screen with numbers that most people couldn't understand. 2 out of 1,000, 2 out of 1,000, 2 out of 1,000. Soon after, another row of blood words drowned them out. Go ask, go ask, go ask. The direction of the topic in the live broadcast had finally been successfully guided. All right. That trash has successfully piqued my curiosity. Zhang Ji, it's time for you to display your usefulness. Someone sent a crying laugh emoji. Find your target. Officer He doesn't look easy to talk to. But what if Tianbang is a smiling tiger? There's no mistaking the smiling tiger. My heart aches for my Zhang Ji. In a dozen or so seconds, the live broadcast room had already formed enough impetus for the host to do what they desired the most. Correspondingly, every bullet screen that was sent here was piled up with real gold and silver. For example, the forceful spamming of the screen to set the pace could only be achieved with honor points. Because of this, Zhang Ji needed to expend more effort to deal with changes that were beyond her control. This was also the most attractive aspect of her live broadcast, seeking death again, seeking death under the teasing of the audience, endlessly seeking death, and so on and so forth, until the game over. Frankly speaking, Zhang Ji already felt that the situation wasn't quite right. From the inside information she received to the conversation with Tianbang, to the series of events that followed, it wasn't a coincidence, but it wasn't deliberate either. It was as if there was an invisible hand constantly correcting and guiding the situation to the direction they wanted it to go. Because of her fearless live broadcast style, Zhang Ji was also fortunate enough to come into contact with many of the top figures in the inner world. In her opinion, this feeling was familiar. It was as if she had bumped into the plan of some guru or some powerful scriptwriter. On one side, rationality screamed danger, and on the other side, the effect of the show was tumbling up. Between the two, she didn't need to hesitate at all. What's more, her team behind the scenes had already combined the information from various channels and sent her a rather reliable piece of information. Zhang Ji couldn't control herself the instant she saw the relevant information. Her eyeballs swiveled, and she first interacted with the audience in the live broadcast room. My team just got some news. A certain bastard who set the pace. Was it you? The atmosphere in the live broadcast room was full. Shut him down. Shut him down. Get out of the way. Zhang Ji's spear technique is coming. This spearhead is so sharp. I have a bad feeling about this. Light a candle for Zhang Ji in advance. Zhang Ji shifted her camera and swallowed imperceptibly. She hoped that the gossip just now could help her buffer a bit. She considered her words for a moment and tiptoed over to Tianbang and Yuan's side. She found an opening and suddenly asked, "There are rumors that the commotion in Xia City is related to a project led by Quantum Corporation. What do you two think?" Tianbang and Yuan weren't the only ones in the room. There were 5 or 6 people from the police force. Everyone raised their eyebrows when these words came out. Zhang Ji instantly became the focal point of everyone's attention. Tianbang didn't make any more donuts, but he still maintained his true nature as a smiling tiger. He beamed and didn't say anything. Yuan cast a cold and clear gaze over from the side. Zhang Ji adjusted the camera at the right time and gave her a close-up. Zhang Ji knew that if she were to say the following words, she would very likely offend Yuan and even the Xia City branch. But in the end, her habitual impulse suppressed everything. It said that Quantum Corporation is offering a reward of 2,000 of the project's shares as a reward for the recovery of the lost experimental body. The value of the shares is as high as 16 billion, and there's a lot of room for growth in the future. And that experimental body is currently in the hands of the Xia City branch. It's under the control of the branch's psychic genius, Luo Nan. May I ask, is this true? Zhang Ji only took 12 seconds to finish saying over 100 words. It was rare that every word was as fluent as pearls. They were clear and legible, without any mistakes or omissions. Yuan still didn't speak. Tianbang chuckled. "Zhang Ji, you switched professions to news broadcasting?" Zhang Ji was already in full battle mode. "You said it's news. Does that mean this isn't a rumor?" Only at this time did the vast majority of the audience come back to their senses from the barrage of words. It really is a huge sum of money with 9 zeros at the end of 16. So that's how it is. F asterisk CK 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 F asterisk CK. It's disrespectful not to say it's 9 zeros. When's the nearest flight to Xia City? I'm in Luo City. Is there anyone going with me? We can split the reward in half. 1,000th is acceptable. I'm going to Xia City right now. Is it okay to sell coffins? Locals, please leave a message if you're willing to cooperate. Hurry up and look at the Starry Sky Club's mission system. The high-level area has already been updated. The number of people accepting orders has already broken 100. The bullet screen instantly exploded, drowning out the entire broadcast room. There was also the animation of flames burning the sky. It burned people's heads restlessly. And in this explosive atmosphere, a cold and calm voice cut through. The one who spoke was precisely Yuan. "I don't understand what you're talking about when you say experimental body. But, right now the society is carrying out protection work for an underage orphan girl. This orphan girl was abducted and sold at a young age. Later on, she was sold to an underground fighting arena controlled by a gang in the River Wu district of Xia City. She was forced to engage in lethal, illegal combat. On the night of September 30th, this orphan girl was rescued by the Xia City branch. During this time, the orphan girl's extraordinary ability awakened. According to the Wilderness Explorers Society's protection procedures, the Xia City branch accepted her as an official member of the society. Zhang Ji's originally flying brain was a bit stuck when faced with Yuan's dark and penetrating gaze. She subconsciously replied, "Huh? Is she a member of the society?" The orphan girl's registration procedures for joining the society were already completed before midnight on September 30th. The society's relevant procedures were extended to before midnight on October 1st. There is evidence. The problem is that during the period of our rescue and protection, Quantum Corporation's subordinate, Sky Blue Security Xia City branch manager, Yan Yonghua, first used a weapon platform to attack our personnel. Then he dispatched the Deep Blue Walker combat team to intercept and kill them. He also openly used particle cannons and other prohibited weapons in the residential area of Xia City. At the same time that our personnel were injured, he seriously damaged the safety and order of Xia City. The Xia City government has already issued a serious warning to Quantum Corporation regarding this matter and has handled it. The Xia City branch has also negotiated with Quantum Corporation based on this. All processes and relevant documents have been recorded. Federation citizens can rely on their authority to access and read them. From the above, we can see that the orphan girl protected by the society is far from underage. Moreover, she was repeatedly sold. She doesn't have a legal guardian. Under this kind of background, what does experimental body represent? If she is an experimental body, I would like to ask, for the past 2 centuries, how does the principle of informed consent in human experimentation manifest? What position does Quantum Corporation hold here? Related missions, bounties, and bonuses. On what basis are they established? The Sia City branch hopes to have a clear answer. The atmosphere in the live broadcast room began to turn from restlessness to stagnation. Someone muttered, "Why do I feel like this is a press conference?" It's not a press conference. It's a court. A court. Wouldn't it be better to just say it's an execution ground? No matter how the evaluation was, Yuan's speech continued. According to the principles and regulations established by the Wilderness Explorers Society, the Sia City branch will contribute their greatest strength to the safety and welfare of ability users. They will provide protection to the orphan girl to the best of their abilities. They will also cooperate with the government. According to the relevant authorization, they will carry out the most severe strike against all organizations and individuals that trample on the laws and regulations of related industries. This determination is unwavering. I also hope that the relevant people will abandon rumors, set their positions straight, and overcome their greed. Don't do stupid things that hurt your friends and please your enemies. Don't do stupid things that are like pulling grains out of the fire. Cough. Little sister Yuan, if you keep talking, then this really will turn into a press conference. Please take care of Miss Zhangji's program. Tian Bang chuckled as he interrupted Yuan's speech. He came over and stole the camera. I want to say it. Little sister Yuan has always done things in a thorough manner. You don't lack material evidence or witnesses. What? You're talking to yourself? You're making things up. You don't have witnesses? Didn't you hear it? You're not a witness? Hey, that police officer over there. I'm talking about you. The bald guy with the iron hoop under the hat. Stop staring at that piece of scrap metal. Come over here and be a witness, okay? Chapter 5:10. The middle-aged man in the camera had a long and narrow face with deep eye sockets. His expression didn't change even when Tian Bang pointed at him. The audience in the live broadcast room were guided by Tian Bang's words. Most of them looked at the man's forehead. However, this man was wearing a police cap. The hood of the cap covered his face. From the angle of the camera, they couldn't see what was underneath the cap. Zhangji wanted to change the angle of the camera, but judging from Tian Bang's words. No, Tian Bang didn't even need to hint. As an outstanding streamer, Zhangji's brain contained the video data of all registered extraordinaries and the vast majority of B-rank powerhouses in the world. Under the new stimulation, she was able to confirm the true identity of the police officer in front of her in a flash. Oh my God. Zhangji unconsciously let out a low cry. Perhaps her reaction was too big, but it drew the attention of the police officer. His light brown eyes revealed an ice-cold ruthlessness. It was just like the silver metal headband that was revealed after he took off his police cap. The headband covered most of this person's forehead. Strange symbols were engraved on it, unrecognizable to ordinary people. Under the illumination of the lights in the room, the symbols protruded as if they could struggle out at any time. It was extremely mysterious. When this special metal headband appeared, all uncertainties came to an end. Iron Hoop Jean Tong. Extraordinary. The leader of the 5 metal hunting group. He was without a doubt one of the most powerful hunters in the world. This was a true powerhouse at the level of the Great 100. The number of viewers in the live broadcast room exploded by 50% in an instant. It had already broken 12,000 people. Compared to the number of internet celebrities in the world, this number was certainly a tragedy. But it must be known that this was already a fifth of the entire society. Jin Tong has entered Xia City. Gang Xiong just died. A storm is coming. No, the heavens are already crying from fright. I want to go to Xia City too. Jin Tong's arrival undoubtedly proved that the rumors of 2 out of 1,000 and 16 billion were correct in a realistic sense. Even though He Yuan had just expressed the firm attitude of the Xia City branch half a minute ago, it couldn't stop the crazy growth of weeds in the hearts of certain people. Xia City has Ouyang Chen and Her Majesty Empress Wu. Jin Tong has already arrived. There may be even more powerhouses rushing there. But I can always go watch the excitement. Besides, so many powerhouses have gathered in Xia City. What if both sides are injured? What if I'm a little luckier, and the fisherman really benefits from it? At this moment, it was unknown how many people were watching the live broadcast while booking flights to Xia City. Moreover, they were piously praying, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" It would be best if they fought until the sky turned dark, until the sun and moon lost their light. Only then would they be able to give opportunists like them a chance. Perhaps due to the prayers of tens of thousands of people, the atmosphere at the scene of death was indeed cold and stiff. This was especially true for Jin Tong, a dignified extraordinary, who had been exposed with a single sentence, and in such a mocking tone. Even if Jin Tong wasn't a vain person who cared about status and style, he still had a high self-esteem. It was just like how after his whereabouts were exposed, he took the initiative to remove his disguise and come face to face with her. He looked straight at Tian Bang. Youngsters these days grow their wings early. Deep Blue is indeed a nurturing place. Tian Bang faced the transcendent Belle's cold gaze, but he could still smile. Mr. Jean is much thinner than I imagined. You can actually still wear such a big headband. Presumably, you're interested in Deep Blue because you're in the health business. It looks like the information we heard wasn't without reason. He didn't retreat as he spoke. Instead, he advanced forward. He laughed as he took 2 steps to the side, blocking Jin Tong and the metal component on the ground. I heard that Mr. Jin's cultivation hasn't been smooth in recent years, so he blazed a new path and played with some fancy tricks. He started a prosthetic game on the members of his hunting squad. He's trying to correct his path and climb to new heights. I wonder how he's progressing. Jin Tong's gaze grew even colder. He didn't respond and directly moved forward. How big was the workshop at the scene of death? The group of people were very close. In the blink of an eye, the distance between Jin Tong and Tian Bang was already only an arm's length apart. But Tian Bang's expression didn't change. Mr. Jin's extraordinary power is metallization. The matter of changing the nature of a material sounds grand and grand. I just want to know, how should the relationship between the metal used for prosthetic games and Mr. Jin be expressed? Is it the kind of mysterious illusory wind that splits the mind and splits the soul? Before he finished speaking, a long sizzling sound rang out. It was as if a piece of red-hot iron had been repeatedly thrown into ice water. It brought about a great deal of bubbles and white smoke. At this moment, at least 20 layers of format fire soared in the space of an arm's length apart. Layer upon layer, they collectively constructed the tightest format domain. But Jin Tong was even faster than Tian Bang by an instant. He raised his hand without hesitation and exerted force. His palm suffused with a metallic luster stabbed straight at Tian Bang's chest. Dignity was one thing, and actual combat was another. Jin Tong didn't have the self-awareness of a traditional senior expert. When an expert clearly expressed hostility, whether it was a mutant or a burner, raising his hand and killing them was the correct choice. What's more, Jin Tong had an idea of Tian Bang's reputation, the first person below the extraordinary, the successful combination of the burner and the blood flame system, the most successful example of Project Deep Blue. All these titles combined together was enough to prove that his strength couldn't be underestimated. And there was also He Yuan at his side. A burner could launch a combined attack at any time, anywhere. It definitely wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Of course, it wasn't complicated. Jean Tong had never felt that there was anything in the world more difficult than one's own cultivation. He was a fleshly body strengthened. Even after becoming an extraordinary, the gap between spirit and fleshly body had rapidly shrunk. However, his fleshly body was still his most powerful weapon. The stronger one was, the better one had to be at using it. Jean Tong's body had already become semi-metallic wherever his thoughts passed. His flowing bodily fluids also changed slightly in nature. Surging power circulated and passed through the special structure of his body and soul. It stimulated the free electrons within the metal crystals and instantly formed a powerful electric current. Amidst crackling sounds, the electric arc shot out and further ionized the air. It continuously increased the strength of the electric field and formed a violent conflict with the format domain. Amidst the crackling sounds, the format fire and electric fire interweaved and then spread in all directions. Apart from He Yuan, who was already participating in the attack and defense in the form of the format domain, everyone else in the room was out of luck. Everyone's bodies were paralyzed. Some of the unlucky policemen who were in the worst position were hit head-on by the high-voltage electric current. Even though the format fire had melted some of it, it was as if they had been hit by a heavy fist. They were sent flying into the wall and then fell down. At this time, their skin was charred black and on fire. It was unknown if they could survive. The electric field of the extraordinary domain wasn't actually good at killing, but under the coverage of the domain, the powerful ionization and electrolysis could destroy the basic structure of all matter and then reassemble it into a mess at will. The format domain was also seriously affected, and its structure was basically on the border of deformation and collapse. Jean Tong still had the strength to change the direction of the electric field strength. His energy beam took form, but the twisted arcs of light were like knives and whips. There was even a terrifying heat rising. Just by streaking across the air, a tyrannical aura of death came rushing over. Jean Tong controlled all of this from the center of the electric field. Wherever his thoughts passed, the lightning whips lashed out as they pleased. Even though the two peak burners were protected by the combined formatted domains, their arms, chests, shoulders, and cheeks were all left with scorched marks. Jean Tong aimed the killing power of the electric whip at He Yuan. As for the other, the metal structure in the corner warped soundlessly, turning into a narrow and thin blade. It shot up soundlessly and went straight for Tian Bang's lower abdomen. Everyone had to die in a specific way. Lightning flashed, and the killing intent was imminent. He Yuan had actually raised a metal blade with good conductivity, and Tian Bang seemed to be completely unaware of the killing intent that was so close to him. Let's end this. Jean Tong felt the cold and tight headband on his head, and his thoughts focused. But in the instant that the electric light completely tore apart the format domain, a new power came crashing down from above. Suppression. That power was so terrifying that it directly pressed down from above. It was majestic and magnificent, but it also perfectly matched the format domain. Under its guidance, the format of fire that had already been destroyed and scattered actually surged in an instant, as if a roaring active volcano was being suppressed. The extraordinary electric field domain instantly warped. Under the effect of the power, the floor beneath Jean Tong's feet was like rotten soil, or maybe it was simply melted. Having lost his support, he fell rapidly. It was only then that Jean Tong had a hilariously vigilant thought, which proved that even his spiritual will had been disturbed in that short period of time just now. The moment the sense of danger arose, alarm bells rang. As one of the most outstanding hunters, Jean Tong instinctively wanted to retreat, or at least break away from this completely passive situation. But his opponent didn't give him any openings to exploit. That power was truly integrated as one, piercing straight down from the top of his head. The pressure skyrocketed until the high temperature rolled in reverse, lightning coiled around his body, and the electric field swayed chaotically. Jean Tong growled in a low voice. He had already used an explosive secret technique to resist the tremendous pressure that was pressing down. The power of pressure and recoil intersected, and the entire office building he was in seemed to be filled with gunpowder. Dozens of floors collapsed one after another, and sparks shot out in all directions, blasting hundreds of meters away. The surrounding buildings were all shaking, and large pieces of glass walls cracked at almost the same time, raining down a storm of shards. The 75th floor of the office building swayed at an angle of almost 30 degrees. Zhang was hit head-on by the shockwave and fell into a corner. She was so confused that even the camera crashed into the wall. Fortunately, she relied on her professional instincts and quickly moved her hand over to act as a buffer. She also grabbed the camera in time to ensure that the thing that made a living could still be used normally. Fortunately, the floating camera had been modified by a famous expert, and it could still maintain its working state in such a tragic electromagnetic field. Only the internal light sensors and corresponding components were operating crazily, barely digesting the stimulation of the strong light and the shockwave, restoring a relatively clear image to the live stream room. The live stream room, which had gathered nearly 15,000 people, was completely silent. The streamer didn't speak, and most people forgot to join in. Under the influence of the herd mentality, the image was clean, and there was only the crack that led straight to the bottom of the building, as well as the sparks and lightning that were spewing out from inside. It was like an active volcano in the city. And from this bottomless crack came Jin Tong's slightly hoarse roar. Wu Zhao. The sound and visual effects aren't bad. Chapter 5:11. Was the volcano about to erupt? The office building shook to such an extent that it seemed like it would snap in half at any moment. Zhang Ji was swaying left and right, her vision spinning. But half a second later, she successfully controlled the floating camera to fly out of the window. From a vertical angle, she captured part of the explosive scene from the 50th floor of the office building. This surging scene fully demonstrated Zhang Ji's ability to capture the camera after years of seeking death. Of course, at this time, no one would think that much. Most of the viewers in the live stream could only stare dumbfounded at the high-rise office building. From the base to the top, half of the building had been washed by the shockwaves of flames and lightning. From this scene, it could be seen that Jin Tong had been struck from the 75th floor all the way to the surface. He was more than 300 meters high, and the floor slabs, steel bars, metal frames, and so on were destroyed. Moreover, this did not include the number of people who might have died inside the building. This was a battle between extraordinaries. For most of the viewers in the live stream who paid attention to the battle results, this was not the first time they had seen extraordinary spar, fight, or even fight to the death. But that was because they had to rely on advanced video technology to watch relevant videos, highlights, and so on. There were less than 100 extraordinaries in the world, so it was impossible for them to be their live stream guests all the time. A very small number of people would occasionally be lucky enough to see a live broadcast, which was enough for them to savor for 3 to 5 years. But now, a true extraordinary level battle was unfolding in front of their eyes. On one side was Iron Hoop Jin Tong, one of the strongest wild hunters in the world. As for the other side, the name Jin Tong shouted had already revealed who his opponent was. Her Majesty Empress Wu. Ever since her battle with the High Priestess of the Public Church 2 months ago, announcing to the world that she had become an extraordinary, Her Majesty Empress Wu had finally revealed her extraordinary power to the world once again. Compared to the unfathomable mysteries on the spiritual level, there was no doubt that the current scene of buildings collapsing and mountains shaking was more in line with the aesthetics of the general public. Under the constant shaking of the camera, the number of viewers in Zhang Ji's live stream broke through from 15,000 to 20,000 in just a few seconds. Then, it continued to skyrocket. By the time the dust at the bottom of the stairs blocked everyone's view, the number of viewers watching the dust-filled scene had already exceeded 28,000. This had already exceeded 40% of the society's membership. On one hand, one could see how attractive a battle between extraordinaries was. On the other hand, one could see that the Xia city disturbance possessed an astonishing level of popularity. This was the reason why such a large number of spectators could explode in such a short period of time. Zhang Ji had not paid attention to the situation in the live broadcast room for a long time. In a dangerous building that could collapse at any moment, she could only try her best to calm her heartbeat. At the same time, she prayed to the gods around her, hoping that the main battlefield between the two extraordinaries would appear in the area her camera could cover. Of course, this was just wishful thinking. For extraordinaries, the topography of an office building was never a reason to restrain them from using form displacement and transposition. If they wanted to, the entire Xia city would become their battlefield. How could a puny little streamer determine the direction for two extraordinaries? But just as Zhang Ji was gasping for breath and praying, someone suddenly grabbed her by the shoulder. The person's posture was very intimate, and he even blew a breath of air into her earlobe. "Oh, Zhang Ji. Don't be nervous. A beautiful and dedicated streamer like you is very rare in this world. The heavens will certainly make your wishes come true. Major General Tian." Zhang Ji didn't care that Tian Bang was taking advantage of her. She was just angry that this fellow had disturbed her work. Tian Bang chuckled as he stuck close to her. He continued to give her advice. "You must hold the camera firmly. You can't miss out on a wonderful scene." What did he mean? Zhang Ji was stunned for a moment. Then, she saw a blurry figure soar into the sky amidst the dust and smoke that filled the sky. It was Jin Tong. Given Zhang Ji's strength, it would be very difficult for her to keep up with the speed of an extraordinary if she really wanted to dash forward like a hurricane. This was the case even with the assistance of a camera worth millions. But at this moment, Zhang Ji could clearly see Jin Tong's figure soar into the sky. She also saw the figure's speed grow slower and slower. It was as if his momentum had come to an end, but it was more like he was being forcefully restrained by some invisible force. It was clearly not the gravity of Earth. It was an even more unyielding and direct force, an even more terrifying and tyrannical force. In the next second, Zhang Ji saw Jin Tong, who had reached the end of his ascending momentum, become like a deformed baseball. He was fiercely struck by an invisible club. A powerful force poured into him, sending him flying. His speed had increased explosively by more than 10 times, 100 times. In the face of such a terrifying acceleration, the originally continuous footage became disjointed. In that instant, the vast majority of people only heard the sound of an explosion. They saw the cloud of the sonic boom explode and the dust and smoke in that area disappear. Jin Tong's figure had disappeared. Zhang Ji's vision blurred. She could no longer see Jin Tong's figure. Here. At this time, Tian Bang, who was still maintaining an intimate posture, gently held the back of her neck. He exerted a little force and gestured for her to shift her line of sight. The corresponding camera also shifted accordingly. Half a second later, the tens of millions of dollars worth of camera automatically focused. It happened to capture the figure that was fiercely bounced off the glass wall of the building a block away. Bounced? That's right, bounced. This scene, the awkward scene, almost made some of the OCD viewers vomit blood. Zhang Ji's logical thinking was also almost messed up. Fortunately, she was definitely not a vase that only knew how to act cute. On the contrary, she was an excellent streamer with very solid professional knowledge. While most people were still doubting their own eyesight because of the absurd scene in front of them, Zhang Ji had already calculated the kinetic energy that Jin Tong carried at that moment based on the distance between the two buildings, the flight time of Jin Tong, and his approximate weight. Jin Tong's weight was about 80 kilograms, and his flight time was about 0.5 seconds. He was already a block away, and the straight line distance was about 1,800 meters. Based on this calculation, the kinetic energy he carried could reach about 500 million joules. This impact exceeded the standard equivalent of 100 kilograms. It was similar to the power of a traditional battleship's main cannon from more than a century ago. Compared to the legendary humanoid nuclear bomb level extraordinaire, the absolute power of this attack was only so-so. Zhang Ji also couldn't calculate the specific increase in the mental interference with the material plane. But the problem was that even if she only calculated the pure kinetic energy, such a high-speed impact actually didn't break through the glass wall 1 block away. This was something that shouldn't happen in the normal world. Since it had already happened, it proved that the rules of the area she saw had already invisibly changed. Did the buildings suddenly get strengthened, or did Her Majesty Empress Wu directly change the direction of the force? She couldn't get an answer, but the direct result of this scene was, all the pressure brought about by the conversion of kinetic energy was borne by Jean Tong's body to the greatest extent. Being hit by a main cannon and having a cannonball explode in the stomach were two different things. If a standard equivalent of 10 kilograms was effectively used on a coin, without considering the wear and tear of the coin itself and its travel route, it could theoretically make this thing fly out of the Milky Way galaxy. 10 times the force was used on Jean Tong's body without holding anything back. Even an extraordinary would find it hard to endure such a tragic result. With a puff, blood splattered out of Jean Tong's eyes, ears, and nose. His eyeballs were about to pop out, and his thin and long face was contorted from the pain. His exposed skin was instantly smeared with a layer of red, and it was unknown how many of his capillaries and skin tissues had collapsed. As for the extent of the damage to his internal organs and bones, only Jean Tong himself knew. It was very difficult for outsiders to see the limits of an extraordinary. Just like at this moment, Jean Tong was suffering from all sorts of injuries. But in the blink of an eye, a hoarse and violent roar rang out. Jean Tong screamed as he curled up and shot out with all his might. Ah! The roar spread out, but what really made people's scalps go numb was another source of sound. In the void, it was as if hundreds of bowstrings had been released. Amidst this increasingly dense tremor, be it the building or the air a street away, everything produced dizzying distortions. There was another explosive rumble, and Jean Tong's body instantly turned into a tangible bubble before disappearing. Tian Bang's hand moved again, and Zhang Ji consciously looked up in the direction of the force. She saw that in the gray sky, a long azure scar had been torn open at some point. It extended southeast, and wherever it passed, a dark red color seeped out. Jean Tong had probably activated some kind of long-distance escape technique. In the blink of an eye, he had already traversed dozens of kilometers and was almost out at sea. He ran away just like that? The battle between transcendents had ended? Zhang Ji was a little dumbfounded by this anticlimactic ending, and so were the 30,000 viewers in the live stream channel. It wasn't until the long scar was about to disappear into the horizon that a large number of bullet comments appeared. What's going on? Jean Tong has typed GG. Her Majesty Empress Wu has also typed GG. Jean Tong says that Xia City is too hard. He can't break through. I must have seen a fake live stream. But that fall just now really hurts. Accelerating from 0 to 10 times the speed of sound in an instant, and then returning to 0 in an instant. Just what kind of experience is that? Teacher Jean Tong can give lessons in the future and impart his experiences, but does he really know how Her Majesty Empress Wu did it? The surging bullet comments were already mixed in with the comments of many powerhouses. There was no lack of mockery and ridicule among them. It was true that Jean Tong's performance today was worse than dog shit. From start to finish, one of the best wilderness hunters in the world had been completely controlled by Her Majesty Empress Wu. He had completely lost the rhythm he should have had. Was Jean Tong not at his best, or was Her Majesty Empress Wu's strength beyond imagination? Chapter 5:12. Don't get distracted. Tian Bang reminded her. Zhang Ji looked up in shock and saw the dark clouds above Xia City distort once more. They burst apart. Although the turbulence was great, there was no sound. It was because of this that the pencil-straight long scar that nearly sunk into the horizon suddenly twisted and fell diagonally downwards. They were still fighting. Zhang Ji looked up at the strange scene in the sky and was delighted at first. She felt that the live broadcast could continue, but then she realized that the battlefield was too far away. It was beyond her reach. The broadcast room was filled with howls of grief when they saw the transmitted image. Some people didn't give up and encouraged, brothers and sisters of Xia City, it's time for you to show your worth. There really was a response from Xia City, I'm looking at Dongshuan Beach. I'm going with you. Squeak. I'll go. They're specifically currying favor with Her Majesty Empress Wu. Please share your live broadcast room number. Please open up the donation channel. It'll be easier to handle the aftermath. No matter how noisy the broadcast room was, Zhang was very anxious. She looked all around, trying to find a miraculous way to rush over. At this time, her earlobes heated up again. Tianbang continued to tease, "Do you need a ride? I just happen to have a flying car. I can just go downstairs." Zhang turned her head. After being taken advantage of for so long, she finally saw Tianbang's face after the battle. Tianbang was actually in a sorry state at the moment. His hair was a little unkempt because he was directly facing Jin Tong's extraordinary electric field, and there was even a scorch mark on his face, adding some blood and fire to his sunny, boyish smile. Of course, it also revealed part of his true nature. Zhang blinked. The bit of emotion in her heart was quickly diluted. Doubt surged in her mind, and the vague thoughts that originally existed gradually became clear. "You guys, shoo. You can't use the word we carelessly. I'm such a clean stream. When you mention me, it sounds like I'm forming a clique and scheming." That's how it was. Zhang was about to ask again when Tianbang took the lead. He leaped out of the broken window and flew downwards. This office building had been tossed around for so long. Anyone who wanted to use the elevator would have a serious problem with their intelligence. Zhang naturally followed, but when she came out of the window, she subconsciously turned her head. She saw He Yuan staying at the scene. She had no intention of following. "Hey, hurry up!" Tianbang called out from below. Zhang caught up. "What about Vice President He? She also has to clean up the mess." Ever since she became a secretary, this skill has been maxed out. "I'm training Zhu Ling so that he can learn more." Zhang sighed. She felt that Tianbang's description of Officer He's character was a little broken. But very quickly, the desolate scene below dominated her senses and state of mind. Looking at the buildings that were almost in ruins, Zhang could not help but feel sorrowful. The aftermath was probably the most difficult. The number of casualties caused by the clash of transcendence just now was probably no less than the chaos from last night until now. It was true that the police had sealed off the office building, but they had also used manpower. Just now, almost the entire building had been blown up. The police on duty should have suffered heavy casualties. Just as she was thinking, Zhang line of sight coincidentally cut into the broken window of the dilapidated building. She caught a glimpse of a young policeman sitting on the ground in a daze. Clearly, he was stunned by the scene just now. But the key point was that he was still alive. It was not just this person. Along the way, Zhang saw more and more policemen. There were not many normal people, dazed, stunned, crying, laughing, but they were all alive. Although it was not pleasant to hear, Zhang still had to say that this was the biggest abnormality. Zhang was also stunned. They again. Zhang took a deep breath and ignored Tianbang's joke. She asked directly, how did they survive? She knew herself. At the moment when the two transcendents collided, even if she, a level C ability user, was placed a few floors below, it would be difficult for her to survive the impact of the volcanic eruption. If there were dozens or hundreds of policemen in the building and only one person was lucky enough to survive, it would be acceptable. But if dozens or hundreds of policemen all died, it could only mean that there was a force more powerful than the goddess of luck at work. The camera that was synchronized with Zhang line of sight also showed the situation in the dilapidated building to the live broadcast room. D***men, I clearly saw someone being blasted out of the building by the shockwave, and there was more than one. Where are the corpses? There are no corpses, but a few people successfully landed in the air. There are also the new generation of iron men and poor conductors. I feel like I won't survive. The inner world has already been crushed by the military and police's combat power, right? The waterfall-like bullet screen was mostly filled with exclamations of admiration and ridicule. Compared to this, the comments on the forums were a bit more practical. Someone deduced, take care of this lowly person's weak logic. I would rather believe that when Her Majesty Empress Wu made her move, there was someone by her side to protect her. A certain Xia City ID made a direct judgment: the Empress Wu is in charge of offense and the President is in charge of defense. The Empress Wu is in charge of external affairs and the President is in charge of internal affairs. There's nothing wrong with that. Are you talking about Ouyang Chen? It makes sense if he was the one providing support. It would be in line with his usual style. This way, we can explain things to the government and the military. With the confluence of the military and government forces, does Xia City really want to play independent? It can't compare to some headquarters. They sell their bodies to lick the boots of others while they're at it. Xia Chui is inflated. It's full of farts inside. Motherf asterisk cur. I'll give you this. Which bastard was the one who leaked the 2000s? Several floors later, the map rumbled and exploded. At this time, those who still persisted in rational discussion belonged to the outliers. Someone in the middle asked weakly, what if Her Majesty Empress Wu did all of this by herself? What does that mean? This was originally a very good question, but a certain ID cut in at the right time and analyzed the overall situation. His mouth was very big, and his tone was even louder. Xia City probably wants to establish its might. Ouyang Chen and Yu Gang are certainly involved in this plan, and they most likely didn't play a good role. Establishing its might is especially effeminate. Can it really frighten people without the deaths of millions? F***CK, the person above just opened his mouth. That's awesome. The person above is the one with commendable courage. That's right, I'm talking about you. The great blood demon is mighty. He hit the nail on the head. Purple gold authentication. It really is blood demon. I'll take a photo with Great God Blood Demon as a souvenir. Is Great God Blood Demon still accepting disciples? Can I kneel first? Because of the sudden appearance of the extraordinary blood demon, the RT-8313 mission thread became exceptionally noisy. After a series of tosses and turns, the thread basically reached a consensus. Indeed, under the provocation of 2016 billion resources, the eyes of the vast majority of people would turn red with greed. If Xia City was suspected to be an allied power and haggled over the lives of people at this time, it probably wouldn't serve as a deterrent. Instead, it would encourage the greed of certain people and nurture their wishful thinking. So you're saying that Jin Tong can also retreat unscathed? Most likely. How many extraordinaries are there in the society? If one were to be cut down just like that, the pressure on Xia City would be enormous. In the thread, someone had already posted a crying laughing emoji. Thanks to the great blood demon's auspicious words, I will immediately book a plane ticket to Xia City. When I return, I might even be able to get the treatment of being escorted out of the country as a gift. Shameless as the person above. Will you allow me to tour Xia City with you? Let's go together. One-way plane tickets should be enough. Dog fart. Pure trash. Zhang Yingying was still spinning around on the Huanhai Highway due to the problem of the journey. She was already very annoyed, but when she saw the message on the forum, her anger surged. She smashed her fist on the steel plate of the car. There was a loud bang, and the place where she smashed her fist made a deep dent. This is an armored car. The corner of the special police officer's eye twitched, but he didn't dare to say anything. Zhang Yingying's anger had yet to subside. She smashed the car 2 more times. Suddenly, she froze. Her gaze pierced through the front windshield and looked at the scenery of the sea and sky outside the Huanhai Highway. After going around for half a day, she had actually fought her way here. Stop the car. The armored car finally got the chance to show off its performance. It came to a screeching stop. Zhang Yingying pushed open the car door and leaped. She circled around the body of the car like a flipping petrel and plunged down the sea of the precipice. When the special police officer staggered out of the car, he saw the long-legged beauty with a strange temper running fast on the precipice, still heading for the golden beach in the distance. With a muffled bang, a column of water dozens of meters high exploded on the surface of the sea 100 meters offshore. The surging waves and the splashing water droplets almost slaughtered all the creatures in the surrounding water, including the undercurrents in the deeper water. After such a series of actions, the terrifying kinetic impact was finally reduced by more than half. Ah! Jean Tong gasped loudly. He popped his head out of the shallow water, but he spat out another mouthful of blood, which mixed with the icy rain, salt water, gray waves, and white foam. There were also the remains of several fish and jellyfish. He felt that most of his soul had been lost. But he didn't have time to think about the extent of the injury to his body and soul. Instead, he used all his strength to stimulate his yuan qi and calm his mind. He also prepared an overbearing secret technique to stimulate his potential, ready to withstand the terrifying impact from Her Majesty Empress Wu. However, after a few seconds, although the pressure from the opposite side was always there, the substantial impact did not come. I actually smashed into the sea. Good luck. The sound waves were transmitted from the golden beach that faced the sea. Under the erosion of the freezing rain, the color of the beach was somewhat dim, like an orange peel that was close to rotting. Jean Tong was even more convinced that it was the death domain of the beauty on the shore. This, Her Majesty Empress Wu, who was respectfully addressed by the world, was now like a petty bourgeois girl strolling in the morning. She wore a classic white shirt paired with black wide-legged pants, with a slightly unruly leopard belt in the middle. Her shoes and socks could not be seen clearly. She could only see that her clothes were light and thin, swaying gently in the wind. She appeared even more elegant and pleasing to the eye. It was just that she was out of season. Of course, for an extraordinary like Her Majesty Empress Wu, the season had never been a factor. It was fine as long as it was arranged according to her mood. At this moment, her long hair was casually draped over her shoulders, dancing in the sea breeze and freezing rain. She was too lazy to take care of it, and it was already slightly wet. What was even more eye-catching was that she was holding an ancient book with slightly yellow pages that were vertically arranged. Just like how the ancients would read, the book was rolled up, leaving only 1 or 2 rows of ink characters. She ignored the wind and the rain and slowly savored it. When the voice rang out, Her Majesty Empress Wu did not even look Jean Tong in the eye. She was leisurely reading the book, seemingly attentive yet bored. She had even flipped a page in between. She was posturing, right? Perhaps so. But when they had exchanged blows just now, she had also been in this state. This woman, Wu Jiong, had smashed him into the sea while flipping through the book. Jean Tong stared fixedly at the beauty on the shore. No one could understand the pressure here better than he did. Of course, there was even more shame and fear. The depression in his chest surged up, and he barely managed to swallow it back down. And this irrational action further worsened the injuries on his body. This woman had integrated the format of fire at the beginning of her attack in the office building. Using an inconceivable method, she had forcefully pressed this special power of formatting into his body, interfering with and destroying his semi-metallic and near-superconducting body structure. After that, she had simply and straightforwardly attacked him with kinetic energy. She had even beaten his originally strongest physical cultivation into a half-cripple. Now, he no longer had a chance to turn the situation around. The venom of her vision, the ruthlessness of her heart, and the strangeness of her methods were truly something that Jean Tong had never seen before in his life. She had just become an extraordinary 2 months ago. Jean Tong had a Motherf *Cur that he had directly sent to all the intelligence agencies of the inner worlds. This kind of skillful and flawless attack method, let alone 2 months, even the veteran extraordinary who had cultivated for more than 20 years would most likely be brought to their knees. There were many strong men in the world who could swing a 1,000-pound hammer, but to be able to use a 1,000-pound hammer to weave brocade and embroider. Just what kind of monster was she? Jean Tong's mind was in turmoil. He felt that if he continued to let his imagination run wild, he might directly collapse. He could only forcibly restrain his mind, endure the discomfort of his body, and hoarsely say, "Wu Jiong, what the hell are you trying to do?" Her Majesty Empress Wu's attention was still on the book, or it could be said that she was in the most comfortable state she had created for herself. Jean Tong's clear questioning words entered her ears, but she didn't even raise her eyelids. I warned you before not to go ashore, or else I would beat you to death. Let's not talk about the process, but now you've perfectly fallen back into the sea and haven't set foot on the shoreline. For the sake of this luck, I won't see you out. Jean Tong stared fixedly at Her Majesty Empress Wu. He didn't believe that the basis of this woman's decision was some damned luck or whatever. Even saying it was mood was more reliable than that. But he didn't say anything else. In this kind of situation, he would be an idiot if he spat out another word. Jean Tong had fought with the aberrations in the wilderness all year round, and it wasn't the first time he had encountered a crisis that could kill him. This had also trained him to be soft and hard, straightforward and submissive in his style of doing things. If he couldn't beat her, then he couldn't beat her. If Her Majesty Empress Wu really wanted his life, he would fight to the death. But since she didn't care about him, what harm was there in enduring for a moment and retreating? Jean Tong slowly breathed in and out. His body cut through the icy cold water and slowly moved backwards. But at this moment, he suddenly heard a vague sound. Someone was rushing over at lightning speed, and the content of the shouts was related to him. His heart jumped slightly, and he looked at Her Majesty Empress Wu on the shore. Even though there was a third party involved, this beautiful woman still didn't have any intention of changing her decision. The book in her hands flipped over another page. The patter of freezing rain fell, drenching her clothes and long hair, but when it touched the page, it all silently melted away. He had already been completely ignored. This wasn't an act. Perhaps from the very beginning, Her Majesty Empress Wu had never cared about him. Jean Tong gave Her Majesty Empress Wu a deep look. He wanted to carve this clearly high-profile, yet mysterious woman into his heart. Soon after, his entire body sank into the surface of the sea, retreating towards the deep sea. A few seconds later, he disappeared into the misty depths of the vast ocean. Hey, 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 hey. Just half a minute after Jean Tong disappeared, Zhang Yingying rushed over from the distant Huanhai highway, panting. But in the end, she was still a step too late. She could only watch helplessly as Jean Tong disappeared into the distance. Her enthusiasm of seeing the battlefield fly over from beyond the sky and joining in on the fun was completely doused in ice. Zhang Yingying looked at her boss with a gaze of disbelief. Although she knew that no one could guess her boss's thoughts, in this dangerous time of war, to send off a great extraordinary enemy with a wave of his hand, such a strange train of thought, no, someone on the internet had clearly deduced this. Boss, you, Zhang Yingying wanted to say, boss, are you crazy, but she finally knew how to swallow those words. Then she wanted to say, don't tell me you guys really don't dare to kill me, but she felt that it was too sudden. Following that, her quick-witted mind couldn't find a third suitable replacement word. She could only say, you, for a long time. Even though she couldn't say the words out loud, her attitude was expressed. Her Majesty Empress Wu still gave face to her subordinates. She moved her gaze away from the scroll in her hand and looked at Zhang Yingying. She nodded and said, you've almost reached the limit of your current level. The effects of cultivating your mind and body during this period of time are not bad. Next, you need to carve out your own path in order to change your fate and become independent from the world. Defy the heavens and change my fate? Boss, you've read too many novels. Zhang Yingying was so angry that she laughed. Also, are you reading Buddhist scriptures? Had he read too many Buddhist scriptures and learned the heart of a bodhisattva? That place is obviously full of bragging ****. Her Majesty Empress Wu turned her gaze back to the scroll. She said unhurriedly, no matter how you boast, as long as you can boast to the point that many people don't doubt it, it can also be considered an extraordinary power that defies the heavens and changes fate. Of course, it would be better if there was a self-consistent logic. Considering that this is the result of an uncivilized civilization, it's not unreasonable to raise its value a bit higher. Ah, Your Majesty, I'm not discussing Buddhist scriptures with you. You said it first. Then I'll tell you now. Why did you let the enemy escape? Answer me. Indulging the enemy? I didn't. You're still saying you didn't? I saw it all. That Jean Tong escaped right under your eyes. Didn't you see the comments online? Those greedy, insatiable, and lawless troublemakers are all celebrating, okay? You let Jean Tong go. You're simply encouraging them to come to Xia City to hunt. Luo Nan's side is dead. You're talking about Jean Tong. Has he broken away from the battlefield? Her Majesty Empress Wu raised her gaze once more. She looked at the drizzling rain falling from the sky. She casually extended her hand and caught a drop of rain on her fingertip. She pinched it lightly. If everyone believes that he has broken away, then I have nothing to say. Zhang Yingying was at a loss and puzzled. When you're weak, acting cute is instinctive. When you're in danger, being low-key is smart. But when you need to be responsible, you still play old tricks. This malicious act of acting cute is just asking for a beating. Luckily, Yingying, you're still in the legal stage of acting cute. Come on, smile for us to see. Zhang Yingying wanted to kneel before her boss. She was just about to throw caution to the wind and unleash her great act of unreasonable behavior when her heart inexplicably trembled. The white rainbow circulating around her body hummed. It was as if a layer of gloomy clouds had condensed into a clear intent. But when she tried to sense it again, it was hard to grasp. She just felt that the dusky scene of the sea and sky before her eyes seemed to have become much more oppressive. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.